like, I missed my father's funeral last year because I had to roll cookies because they didn't get enough work done the day previous. I looked at the clock when my father was going on the ground, gone, like, this is fucked. Like, this is bullshit. This is not why I started the business. I started the business to get time. I started the business to spend more time with my family and get my life back. But it's not gone that way. It's gone the opposite way. But, you know, I don't resent the business for that. I feel like if my father had been dead that day, he would have been proud of me because all he ever did is work for a living. He had 10 children. To me, it was pure passion to be able to roll stupid fucking sugar cookies while my father was getting buried. Like that was pure passion because it needed to be done. I did have a moment, though, I will say, later on that day, and we were close. We were solid. It was the Christmas week. We were just hanging together, and a customer, pretty well-to-do customer, comes in. She's a lovely woman telling me about how her mother's just died and she wants treats. And I said, I'm sorry. Like, look, there's nothing. I don't have the food. Fridges are empty. I have no food for you. I'm sorry. She goes, but I need a couple of boxes to bring to the funeral home. My mother's died. She repeated herself. And I said, I know exactly how you feel. My father was buried this morning and I was up rolling cookies. And I said, you know, can't help you. And she just, the face, you know, was like, what's the chances of that, you know?
Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Taking Action. I am your host, Michael Allen. Today I'm joined with my co-host, Ryan Peden, as well as our guest, Kevin Massey. Kevin is the owner of the Old Dublin Bakery and founder as well. He does pretty much everything. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I will correct you once and just say I don't do everything because we, you know, I wouldn't want to get in hot water. We have 6 staff at this point, and so just to make sure.
Yeah, you've come a long way.
Yeah, you know, I guess I have. Like, you don't, I mean, maybe people do, but I definitely didn't plan this, you know. I just kind of got to the point where I couldn't really work for anybody anymore. And I've been in this industry a long time, and I had to find a way. I always wanted to work for myself, didn't know how.
So that's actually a great spot to start.
Yeah.
How did you get into, why is it that when you realized you couldn't work for anybody anymore and you wanted to do your own thing, that you went into baking?
Well, I've always baked. I've started in kitchens when I was like 16, and you know, it was the kitchen confidential kind of lifestyle that I grew up in. 16 years of age, screamed at top of my voice, you know, pots and pans thrown at you, you know, worked literally as a slave, you know, like abused, threatened, you know, at 16 years of age. Get to the point where you couldn't even go home and tell your parents how horrific your job was. Wow. But that was the industry, and in some places it still is, you know.
What industry was that?
In the cooking industry, in the food industry, yeah.
Is that here in Newfoundland or Canada?
No, my God, no. In Dublin, in Ireland, yeah. In a restaurant. It was kind of historic for me even then. It was a restaurant that was around the corner from where my father grew up, like literally around the corner from where my father grew up. So it was always a little thing there, you know. Yeah. And I just kind of like wanted to cook for a long time because I've 9 older siblings, but one of them was in the cooking industry. Okay. And she was the closest to me in a lot of ways, and I just kind of used to see her do stuff. She'd make birthday cakes at home, that kind of stuff, and I just used to look at this and go, I was interested. And so even at a very young age, I wanted to cook and wanted to be a chef. I actually wanted to do butchery, which wasn't in the 90s. That wasn't a thing. That wasn't hipsterish and charcuteries like it is now. Yeah, it was a dying industry.
I think a lot of people dream about opening up a bakery. What's one thing that you've faced that's been a real challenge for you?
I mean, how long have you got? You know, how long have you got? I mean, there's lots of challenges, you know, but there's lots of wins. You know, one of the biggest challenges I had in St. John's, small town, because we were pretty good, we were doing well. You know, we always outgrew the places where we were going, whether it was the farmer's market or it was a rented kitchen or a little tray. Like, there was always a lot of love till it wasn't, you know. It was almost, okay, now this is a lot, you know. What do you mean you're here 16 hours today? How come we can't use the kitchen that, you know, we're supposed to be sharing with you? You know what I mean? Like, we kind of took over everything that we've ever touched. So we just, until we got our own place now, you know, it's ours now. But that was one of the biggest challenges because you can't plan for that stuff. It just happens underneath your feet, you know. You work hard and you try to be determined and get as good as you can. And then all of a sudden you're not welcome anymore, or it's time to do something else, you know?
I mean, I remember going down to the church down the street and seeing you down there way back when. Yeah. Where was the first place you started here?
The very first place I started was at the CLB Armoury market on a Sunday afternoon. I mean, without getting too real, I got to the point where I was losing a relationship and a job in the same day, and I kind of like had nothing else to do. I'd worked in all of the places. The only place I didn't work in was Georgetown, and that's one of my biggest regrets in my career is not working in Georgetown because they're the best at that. What they do.
Oh yeah, the Georgetown Bakery, you mean?
Yeah. That's the one bakery in town I really didn't work at, and I do regret it because I don't have that bread training the way them guys do. We'll get to that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just worked everywhere, and I just said I got to do something else, and I always thought like doing these tables, farmers market type tables, would be a good way to ease in. And so, like I said, falling on my ass again, how life happens. I just said, so I can apply for a job. I had that job offer on the table right away, and I was like, I can do the same thing over again, with a safety net of being in this job, and maybe I'll start a business. I just said, I'm going with it. I had like a month of parental leave left with my youngest child, so I had a month. And I said, well, I'm going to see what I can do. This is November. All the tables are full and all these markets, Christmas market, no chance to get anywhere. And I just emailed around, and the CLB Armoury market said they had a cancellation. And for $10 table, I went and showed up with, I think I had $206 in my bank account at the time. And
wow.
That's funny. I went to the Costco. Well, they couldn't afford a Costco membership, so with $206, so I went to the cash and carry there on O'Leary Avenue there, and I bought in a few ingredients. And I remember buying the paper bags to put the cookies and stuff in, and I was cursing because to me that was a waste of money. I don't need 500 bags, but
right.
I just had to do it anyway, and I put $200 down or whatever I spent, and I came back, sold it in less than 2 hours, and there was a 4-hour market, 10 to 2, I remember. And it was simple, but the two things: cinnamon buns were there,
yes,
macaronis, chocolate chip, peanut butter. Things I do, some of the things I still do today were there that day.
Right. I was going to ask you what were your go-to baked items.
I had the name. I had the Old Dublin Bakery, because I booked the market. I had those 6 days notice. I booked the market. Was planning the market, just driving around, and I was thinking for 2 days driving around. What am I going to call this? I wanted to call it something that could be anything. We could sell sandwiches tomorrow, we could sell breads the next day. It doesn't matter really, the name doesn't define the business, but it kind of sounds almost romantic, Yeah. And to let you in a little secret, it was actually the name of the very first restaurant I worked in was called the Old Dublin Restaurant, and that was the one where I got onslaughted and abused. But it was so beautiful. It was in an old Georgian house, and it was like supper clubs. It was beautiful, little intimate setting.
Yeah.
They had a massive catering business. They closed not long after I worked there. Unfortunately, didn't, just because of the thing. But I just thought the Legacy was a beautiful little name. I didn't rip them off, okay? But I just thought the Old Dublin was
inspired it.
So that original job you had when you were 16, Old Dublin Restaurant.
Yeah.
Where you got yelled at, pots of pans thrown at you. Instead of taking away a pile of trauma from that, you actually romanticized it and took inspiration from that to name your own business.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever read, Bourdain's Kitchen Confidential, I mean, he romanticizes the whole industry, Well, it isn't, in a lot of ways, it is an industry of abuse,
Sure.
Abuse to your body and to your mental state. And
Yeah.
it's up to you whether you want to actually do it for the passion or you can take it, And you come up against that. I'm old school when it comes to stuff like that, Nobody's training the way I trained,
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm the best, but I'm tough when it comes to that, and you can't replicate that experience. You can't replicate what it is to be 16 years of age and have a sous chef in Donegal scream at you from the top of her lungs, and when you don't understand it because of her thick accent, she just screams at you some more, and she will take whatever's there and she will fire it at you, and she didn't care if she hit you. If she hit you with a pan or pot, she didn't care. She didn't, if you were on £2, 10 pence an hour, I couldn't afford a pack of smokes at that stage. I couldn't have, £2 was not money,
Yeah.
In Ireland has I don't know if they still have it now. Ireland has a beautiful thing to encourage all these industries to grow, where apprentices don't have to get paid minimum wage, would you believe? It's a student thing. So if you're an apprentice, you can actually earn less than minimum wage. And it's because it's an apprenticeship thing, So you're supposed to be getting training, you're supposed to be getting, because you get signed off, like your Red Seal
But with
program.
no government funding to top you up to the minimum wage. There was none of that. You actually worked for less than minimum wage.
You worked for less than minimum wage. Like I said, I couldn't afford a pack of smokes an hour, And back at 16 years of age, I was working from half six in the morning till there was times I was there at 11 o'clock at night. And you know, she'd tell you to go for a fag because she's from Northern Ireland. Now, and it's a smoke, like, it's
I
not,
know,
you know, go out for a fag, she'd say, you know. And like you'd say, finally, after 6 hours, I'm finally getting a moment. And you'd walk, there was an old house, it was a really cool place. And you'd walk to the back, walk through the garden, and you'd like literally to get your smoke, and you'd do this and about to light up, and as you were about to light up, she'd be over, come on, get it to work, and you'd be like, you couldn't explain that to her. Right. She was just, by the time you went to pee, by the time you get a drink of water, by the time you made it to the back garden, 2.5 minutes later, it was time to go back, you know. But, you know, what can I say? It's made me determined, I guess, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are tired of working for other people. And I think that's one of the main reasons that we go into entrepreneurship. You know, there's just something in us that we would rather struggle for ourselves and invest in ourselves than suffer through somebody else's.
Well, I think it's really interesting because a running topic on the show is people that want to be an entrepreneur, want to be self-employed, want to start their own business, and they're in an employment position and they can't make the jump. And so you were just in a position where you just seemed like you're like, the hell with this.
Yeah.
And based upon the experience you went through when you were 16, this is probably still not as hard.
I mean, yeah. Like the only difference was I didn't have 3 children.
Right.
I didn't have bills, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, trust me, there was a lot of anguish in the process. I might try and make it sound funny, but you know, this is 10 years in the making, you know.
Oh yes.
It was a lot of struggle, but you know, I always was you know, maybe not always, but you know, definitely in my adult life, I was always the best employee. I was always the most skilled employee. I was always the one that was best at the job. And, you know, I ended up in management positions, so I'd seen industry settings, small business settings, a lot of different settings. I've done 1,000 different jobs, and not because I'd quit one next, but I've just been doing this for a long time, you know. Like, I used to do agency work when I was in college, and I would be literally, you know, that's not an industry here, but in Ireland we have a lot of commercial industries, and we have agency work. So basically, a restaurant would call and say, you know, I'm down a shift tonight, can you send someone? And you'd walk in that door. I learned to be able to walk into any kitchen and just go, you know what I mean? When so many agency cooks would be going and scratching their head and where's this, where's that? I just make it up as I go along, you know?
Oh, interesting, though. Think on your feet. Walk into a restaurant with a menu that you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
And to be able to just pick it up.
Restaurant, or it could be a hotel, it could be a hospital, depending what the job was. Yeah. And I had a motorbike in Dublin, which was the best way to get around Dublin, you know? So I was dependable, I was reliable, and the agency was, we got time and a half on Saturdays. And in Ireland it's the law, you get minimum time and a half Sundays, the whole country, and in the agency work I actually got double time Sundays. So I was in college and I was paying my rent, doing 2 days a week, doing 2 8-hour shifts Saturday and Sunday. I was cleaning up, you know, before the motorbike, out boozing, partying, the whole lot, you know.
Well, that's just pure determination right there.
Yeah,
there's money to be made if you go look for it.
Yeah,
work hard.
And the industry the training that I did, I actually did 5 years in college, which is another thing you don't have here. I did a diploma in culinary arts, which is like a trade course, you know, 2 years, and then I said, I'm out of this. I can't take this fucking studying. And I was just like, this is too much. Like, I'm not a studier, you know. I'm a doer, practical kind of. I love the practical classes. Yeah. The theory classes I hated. So I went to the States. I went to Michigan for a while, and I was working there for a summer, and I was working like the worst holiday resort you've ever seen. It was like a mix of underprivileged people from all over the world thrown into a mix, trying to replicate something from the Hamptons or some garbage like that, you know. So, and then I realized that I'm one of these people. I'm the person on a work permit who doesn't have a say, doesn't have a choice. And I said, so I can keep at this for the 10, 20 years and digging away, trying to make a living, or I can actually go back and get some education. So I went back to school I did an advanced entry into a degree course of what I was doing, and I did 3 more years in college, and there I majored in pastry because butchery wasn't a thing, you know. I wanted to do the butchery, the larder with garde manger, but there was 4 people that picked it because it was a dying industry when I was doing it. Right. And this new charcuterie stuff that hadn't happened yet, you know. And so I ended up doing pastry, and I was kind of a bit pissed off about it. But I excelled. I did really well at that.
Yeah, because your pastries are amazing. I mean, it's
Well, thanks.
I think a lot of Newfoundlanders are happy you did pastry. Cause,
Yeah, I mean, there could be more happy. We could get more customers every day for sure. There's always room for more, But we work hard. I mean, like that's I don't know if people understand what it takes to do what we do. Like,
Well, they probably don't, but I think that's like with any industry.
yeah,
You just see the public just sees what you put in front of them, what's in the surface.
true. And they want you to be responsible for it. And if it's not to their standards or their likings or their price range, God help you.
yes, absolutely.
But they don't know what it's like to sacrifice your nights and your mornings and get up at 2 a.m. to go to work and, miss your kids, this, that, and the other, go to bed before the kids. It's a lot. And
It is.
you have to, when it comes mentally, like, I have to apologize to my kids a lot and just reassure them to know that, we're going to go on holiday this year because of this. And we're going to do okay because of this. Because there was a time when I started the business, I was broke. And I mean, I was doing well at the markets, but when you're earning $500 a table or $600 a table, that's your weekly wage, and that's what you get after you've went and bought the ingredients. So it's not a lot of money. I was living on $200-300 a week at that stage, and so I wouldn't pay this bill this week, but I'd pay it one next week, and like it was definitely a juggle. It was definitely a struggle too, but now it's at the point where the struggle is just the same but different,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You've come a long way in the time that you've been
almost 10 years.
Almost
10 years. 2015, it was November, maybe 6th, whatever that Sunday was. And it's funny, as we sit here, you said I'm 13th guest here, and this is the eve of my 20th year in Newfoundland, which is, that's how my life is.
Right.
Wow.
Now, I'm wondering, are most of your customers that come through the door, are they recurring customers, or do you see a lot of new faces?
Well, I don't see you guys around anymore.
Yeah.
So take away that.
That being said, Jane is there frequently.
We get a lot of recurring customers. They're the ones that keep us going. I know a lot of them by first name, and we have a laugh, and we get on great. We do get a lot of new customers, and sometimes it can be amazing, an absolutely amazing experience, and other times it can be a little bit of a challenge just because they come in sometimes with the idea that we're difficult to deal with, where we don't have the parking, we're hard to get, we don't have the product that we want. It's if you don't get there by a certain time, we won't have it. A lot of that is incorrect notions that of yesteryear when we were just open and when we were just setting up here and we were just once a week. It was a bit more hectic. Now 4 days a week. Most days 6 hours. And we have lots of products, and we're waiting for you to come in. And when you buy that stuff, we'll just make more. You know what I mean? It's not like it used to be.
No, you got more resources now, more manpower, more
We
building.
got 6 staff, and we pay the best in town. Like if I show, I did a job posting recently, and I try to keep it real. I'm straight to the point. I don't get on with bullshit at all. Maybe you'll earn this much. I put a chalkboard sign up, and I told them how much they'd earn. I said the hours. I said everything exactly what the job was, handwritten chalkboard. I took a photo of it and posted it and said, we're looking for somebody. Send your email here. It was all there. You didn't have to ask any questions. And I had people from all over the world apply for that job.
All over the world?
Desperate to come to Canada to get that job.
Right.
And, it's not, we're not, don't get me wrong, it's what we can afford to start them on, $20 an hour, plus tips, which tips are good too, really good, and thanks to the customers.
Yeah.
But, and then medical, we're willing to keep people there. We're willing to do what it takes to keep people there, because we know, and I know what it's like to work and to be mistreated. But, I didn't count them, but I must have had hundreds of people send me resumes. Now, most people weren't qualified for the job,
Right.
and I was willing to look at them all, and I read every single resume. I laid my eyes and I read every single one. You get good at that too, But anyway, we had some amazing candidates apply, people who have vast experience, and we were able to take our pick, which was great.
And what were you looking for? And that person you selected, what did you see that
I was looking for me, How do I do who else I say? To be honest, I think I found her. We got a girl now, and she started a couple of weeks ago. Just she cleaned up her old job. She's doing 1 day a week for a couple of weeks, and then last week was her first week, and I have a job keeping up with her. She is fantastic.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've done the impossible.
Her mother came in this week for the first time, and she was showing her mother around, introduced her mother, and I looked at her mother dead in the face and said she's not allowed to quit. Like she just
Wow.
and I might sound jittery when I say it, but I mean, now that she's there and she's the anchor now. She's the 3 a.m. person. She's the person. She's probably here that's getting a big head, but you know, like. To have someone that's worked in this industry for about as long as I have, she's worked on the oil rigs, she's had the shitty overnight jobs, all the same, and then to actually want to be settled in a normal and a set schedule, like, and it will lead the other staff, it will help the other staff to develop, to grow, to take the pressure off. You have someone open up your shop every day with confidence and drive right from day one.
So do you think you were lucky in finding her, or was this
100%.
like just you had something figured out here exactly? You knew what you wanted. And did she move here? I missed that part.
A bit of both, right?
What happened?
Well, she was here working locally. You know, she was working locally, and as horrible as it sounds, the place she was working at is closing down.
Oh, okay.
So she needed
in the
a
baking
job.
industry?
In the restaurant industry.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's unfortunate as that sounds, she really was there and she wasn't getting her hours anyway. So even before the public announcement of them closing down, she was already looking for something else.
Right.
And, you know, this is a small industry. We're small town. We're all friends too. So, like, I can call the cell phone of business owners and find out what a staff member was really like. And, you know, I was able to do that and find out what this person is. And, you know, between me and her previous boss, like, we were able to decide that I think we'd be a better fit for her because she's looking for more hours. She wants a set schedule. She wants to be left alone and just to be the cornerstone, no shifting around and having the space. And because her old job didn't exactly have what she was looking for,
Right.
I think that we lucked out. You know, it was a luck, and you know, it just proved to me that I didn't know there are people in town who can do this job. And because you know, we've had staffing issues, same as everybody. You know, and. My idea in the past was throw more staff at it. See, can we fix this problem by throwing more staff? And man, there was some silly times. You know?
So maybe it's a good opportunity to ask you about the corporate culture. I know you're a small business, so the culture within your business and what it's like to work at the Old Dublin Bakery.
Well, I mean, when I meet people, I try to tell them that we try to treat them like family, like a welcome person. That has its challenges because I've been walked over many times, and you get to the point when one day you can't even really walk into your own shop without people looking over your shoulder and fucking like really ruling the roost when you're the one with the keys. You know what I mean? But so I still want to keep them happy, and I still want to pay them well. I still want to be happy to come to work, but they also have to know that at the end of the day, it's my neck on the line, and if I'm not happy with it, they're going to have to listen to it. You know what I mean? I want them to be happy. I want open conversations. If they think I need to do more, I want to hear it. I want to know. I want to be better. I want to be, because that will help us all go forward. But at the same, and you know, I want them to, you know, want to be there, because like they haven't in the past, especially when we had former employees, they didn't see what I saw. And maybe I'm delusional, but I know what it's like to have a shitty fucking job. I've had many of them. To be able to walk into a place that gives you the whole place shuts down when it's your birthday, because me and my partner will cook you lunch, and we won't just cook you lunch, we'll try to covertly just figure out what your favorite food is, and then we'll cook lunch for everybody. We'll all stop, one person will work, and it's usually me or Jenny, and we'll all sit and have lunch together, and hopefully it's your favorite meal, you know.
Wow.
We'll tailor it to your thing.
Really nice.
You know, when it's your anniversary, when you've been working with us at a year's point, we'll get everybody to sign a card, and we'll put some cash or gift cards, just try and make it a bit fun.
Yeah.
We'll give you a Christmas present. You'll come to our house when it's Christmas and have a party in our house. You know, like we sacrifice to try and make people's lives better, whether it's customers or staff especially. And I just hope that staff see it the way I see it. And I hope that's how it is, because I really want to keep people. And, you know, our longest employee, he had no real training but an interest. He's there almost 5 years. We've got a girl who's almost 4 years. We have a girl who's there just over 3 years, and she's on anniversary stuff. We're always late on these things, but that's okay. You know, we've another girl a year and a half. I mean, like, Didn't we have a Ukrainian girl? She started this summer, and hopefully she's going to stick around for a long time. She definitely sounds like she wants to. And we have this new employee, and that's our cast. 4 of our employees are there a long time.
Yeah.
And the ones that don't stick around, the ones that have fought with me in the past, the clique, the little triangles that gather, that will bring down. This bad moral is not going to work for me. And I try to be straight with people and try to say, look. Like the last person I fell out with, in the process of me handing $450 worth of prizes to all of the staff in terms of cash and gift cards, and she stood there rolling her eyes at me. In front of everybody, I confronted her and said, this is not going to work for me. What is your problem? Turned out she ended up quitting after that. But, in this day and age, it's difficult for people to know that a job is a responsibility, and if it's a good job, maybe try to hold on to it. And I try to create a good job for people, and I try to create an understanding that when you're in the shop, you have to do a bit of work. If you're laughing and joking all day and there's no work getting done, that could be the nail in that coffin.
Yeah.
That could be the day that one day we're going, the taxes are in and we don't have the money or whatever.
Yeah.
I know that sounds a bit brutalist, I know, but it is black and white.
Well, at the end of the day, you're a business. You have to, you can have fun, but you still got to get your work done. You still got to generate the profit. You still have to do the things that keep the heart of the business running, which is sales. And once that's taken care of, you can have fun doing it.
Yeah.
I got a question now. I've always wondered this. Where bakeries are so unique, and the treats and the desserts and the pastries are so different at each bakery you go to, is there much fear when hiring somebody that you're going to give them all your secrets on how to make your delicious things, and then they'll go off and make
it
them
happens. It happens, and with this new job, I actually hired 2 people, because how long is the boy? He was just having a moment, and with all of the hiring of the job, he was thinking maybe that's time for him to go, and so I took on 2 people, and the one person in the second day, she's talking about, wow, I used to work here and I got these recipes. No, not interested. Not interested in the secret of the best place. Not interested. I don't care if Mr. George himself strolled in. I'm going to show you make bread, unless we're friends and we're doing it together or something. Not interested. And if people do it to me, you can't patent the recipe, let's be honest, you just can't,
Right.
All I can do is I'll put an extra gram of sugar in and it's something different, you know what I mean? But it's kind of a big no. If I get an inkling of that, I think it's pathetic, and I definitely don't encourage it, and I'm sure people have gone on, but thankfully I guess I haven't, within reason, I haven't lost too many bakers over the years, so I guess I haven't had that much of an opportunity. But I know if I ever get an inkling of it, I think it's ridiculous. I think it's stupid, because there's 1,000 recipes, 1 million recipes out there.
Right.
When I was in college, the internet wasn't a thing. That's how old I am. The internet. Ireland had dial-up back then. If you had a cookie recipe, you held on to it. You kept it for years. I could lose every recipe I got tomorrow, get brain damage, and lose it all, and I just, you just go Google them all again or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're all out there.
So how did you come up with your recipes yourself? Were they passed down through your family, or did you learn them and take a bit from here and there in the different educations you've had?
A lot of the stuff we do is technique, croissants, breads, there's lots of different ways to do things, but there are techniques doing them, and I guess tweaks here, tweaks there, you get a recipe and you make it your own, upscale it, this, that, the other. I guess a lot of the recipes developed were just by developing them, I started the business at home with no machinery. I had a domestic oven, a crappy domestic oven, and back then, and it was basically what I could produce,
Yeah.
I started doing I was intent to never do a croissant from the house. I was like, I don't have the roll and I don't have a sheet. I was never going to do a croissant. The first winter in the farmer's market, I realized that, I have all this time in my hand, because it used to be only once a month in the winters, if you remember. Yeah. So now I have all this time in my hands. I'm only doing the market once a month, which is the big show. The rest of the month, I'll probably do a few deliveries and private orders, but it wasn't as good. I really wanted that one a month. So now I got more time. And in the winter, I realized that everybody comes in for us for breakfast. Everybody's coming. We open at 9, and by 12, it would start to die down. So I really had to sell breakfast items. So then I just surrendered one day and said, I got to do croissants. And by hand, I started rolling croissants, and 4 dozen, 5, 6 dozen, that's very manageable. And then when I went into the kitchen, we're doing 800 for Christmas. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And Steve will back me up because he's the one who does them. But now we have the machinery, and it's a different story. But it's still a labour.
So let me ask you this about your products and how you create them. Do you ever, or do you still make a product, make something you've made 100 times, taste it and go, no, I'm going to, and then tweak it? Are you constantly in a state of trying to improve the products like every time, or is it just...
No, I mean, there's definitely methods and recipes, but, you know, I'm constantly looking and seeing what's going on here, what's that, and just having that new person in.
Yeah.
Recipes are different now. Like when she's making the stuff that I used to make, I'm fatigued and angry when I'm making it, and she's loving it, and it's different. You know what I mean? It's like I showed her how to do the breads, and you know, all of a sudden I'm able to step back a little bit and really examine the product. So then we're putting a little bit more water in the sourdough to get it to pop more, and you know what I mean? We're constantly, I know I am personally, constantly looking. And I think for the most part, most of the staff are doing the same, you know, making sure that it's the best it can be, whatever the circumstance. Because you have to understand, sometimes it's 30 degrees in there, and we're lucky, we're not as warm as other places. Height of summer though is 30 degrees. And sometimes, you know, I'll go in, you know, in January, and I'll see the breath in front of my face until the ovens start to get going, you know.
Wow.
So you know, there's always something.
Yeah.
You always have to play with your stuff and make sure things are going well. And
I imagine you must have to keep some consistency, because, you know, that's one of my favorite things from the Old Dublin Bakery is the cinnamon buns, as you know. And if I went back and it wasn't the same, the thing that I loved, then, you know, I'd probably go somewhere else. So I love that you're consistent. And that's even amazing to me, how you can be so consistent over so long. I think that's great.
Well, yeah, that's
gets to the point where we can't stand looking at their own products, you know.
Right.
If there's ever cinnamon buns, like people might be surprised, but if there's ever cinnamon buns left over, I'll offer them to all the staff, and they won't take them, you know. When you've seen a million, you know. Now my kids love them. I still take them home to kids, and you know, they definitely will take them. It's not like we hate them or anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good something is.
You know,
too much of a good thing, you're gonna get sick of it.
You know, how many beers do they drink that kitty vitty? You know what I mean?
Right,
it's like,
what's your favorite thing to make? What do you
my
still get joy out
favorite
of?
thing is the croissants, but I don't do them anymore. You know what I mean? I don't do them anymore. I love doing the croissants. I love baking the croissants. I love watching them. My new thing now is those breads. We didn't have a bread baker for the last couple of months, and I was doing the 3 a.m. shifts personally, which is a lot of work, but that's fine. It just meant I had to do longer days because I was staying later too. But then I really got my hands back into bread, which I'd never really, because originally when I started doing bread in the market, I had a buddy of mine coming in to do it with me. And then when I got to the bigger shop, I hired a baker when he trained them. And I was never really in on the bread mix. I can make the soda breads, I can make bread. I made bread 1,000 times. I've worked in all of these places and I've done the breads, but I've never really done the breads, you know. And the last couple of months now, I'm getting more into it. So that's been my new kick, is breads. I'm doing baguettes. We had a group of people from St. Pierre Miquelon in on Monday. It was a private gig we did, you know, and I served them croissants and bread and baguettes. And they told me, and now I'm not, hopefully not just blowing smoke, they told me that it was better than what they get, you know.
Wow.
Now,
That's a compliment.
Yeah, that's how I feel. They studied the baguette. They went into detail about how the baguette was. They were cracking it. They were telling me the parts of the baguette, different parts of the bread, and you know, stuff that I didn't know, you know, because I thought baguette was a baguette, but no, there's this part, there's the ridges, and there's the crouton, that little pointy bit on the end, that's the crouton apparently.
Okay.
But you know, like, I love baking for a living. I thoroughly enjoy it, as stressful and strenuous as it physically can be, you know. Like, I missed my father's funeral last year because I had to roll cookies because they didn't get enough work done the day previous. I looked at the clock when my father was going on the ground, gone, like, this is fucked. Like, this is bullshit. This is not why I started the business. I started the business to get time. I started the business to spend more time with my family and get my life back. But it's not gone that way. It's gone the opposite way. But, you know, I don't resent the business for that. I feel like if my father had been dead that day, he would have been proud of me, because all he ever did is work for a living. He had 10 children. So, you know, to me, it was pure passion to be able to roll stupid fucking sugar cookies while my father was getting buried. Like that was pure passion, because it needed to be done.
Right.
And unfortunately, it wasn't done the day before. So it had to be done that day. It was Christmas week. It was December 16th. Well, you know, what are you going to do? You can't tell the customers. No, I did not make it today. My father died. You know what I mean? I did have a moment, though, I will say, later on that day, and we were close. We were solid. It was the Christmas week. We were just hanging together, and me especially, just hanging together. And a customer, pretty well-to-do customer, comes in. She's a lovely woman. She's a bit demanding. Come in, and we were closed. The doors were closed. Signs on the door. We were mopping the floor, and she's beating on the door. Beating on the door to get in. And I was like, you know, I definitely going to ask for it. And I said, oh, how are you? And she goes, telling me about how her mother's just died and she wants treats. And I said, I'm sorry. Like, look, there's nothing. I don't have the food. Fridges are empty. I have no food for you. I'm sorry. She goes, but I need a couple of boxes to bring to the funeral home. My mother's died. She repeated herself. And I said, I know exactly how you feel. My father was buried this morning and I was up rolling cookies. And I said, you know, can't help you. And she just, the face, you know, was like, what's the chances of that, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't, like I said, I don't resent the business for that. I feel it as a passion. And, you know, whether I'm sitting here on a podcast talking about it or I'm writing my, you know, my notes when I'm an old man, it's a story, you know?
Yeah.
It is a story.
And you're really, the thing that I always like to come back to is you're really growing an asset. At some point in time, if your heart changes, you can sell this asset.
That's exactly what I feel. Well, you know, we bought the building, 1940s house. It was 2 apartments. Then a sexual health clinic, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
And everybody loved Planned Parenthood. They were big supporters. So when we got it, I think it was a good mix. It was a good fit. We've supported Planned Parenthood thousands of dollars over the years. You know, that's definitely been our biggest charity that we've supported over the years. Okay. You know. And then to turn that building into from a rundown, you know, falling apart clinic into what I think is a pretty comfortable place. It's bright and it's never finished, but it's like a warm, cozy little place, you know, something to really visit. I know, I feel like from a customer's point of view, I think it's an experience.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody sees it that way, but in my romantic mind, that's how I see it, you know. Like, I feel that it is definitely an asset. You know, I live on the next block. You know, if all goes well, like, you know, we won't have a mortgage forever. And sooner rather than later, you know, we were able to remortgage because, you know, in small business, you guys know, nobody helps you. Nobody helps you. I couldn't get financing. I lived in an old saltbox house at the time, and I had half paid off, and it was like about $600 mortgage. And I was, at that time, I was making probably the best money. I was making like $5,000-6,000 a week profit, you know what I mean? And the banks would not let me have that mortgage. I could have paid it off in a year.
Isn't it amazing? Just to stop on that moment.
Yeah.
Just stop right there for a moment. I know the pain all too well.
Yeah.
Trying to get money from the banks
Yeah.
when you're self-employed or you're starting a business or a business loan or something like that, and they won't give it to you. They make you jump through hoops, and it's nothing but a fight.
Yeah.
Then you go hire somebody.
Yeah.
You give them 2 pay stubs.
Yeah.
And they go to the bank.
Oh, no.
And they'll get whatever they want.
Yeah. And, you know, but we did it anyway. I mean, my bank at the time said they would help me, and, you know, he was in the process of getting promotion, so he was probably focused elsewhere. So I said, we put in a massive plan when we made an offer. Like my lawyer said, you can put whatever you want in a real estate offer. So that's what I did. I put so many contingents into that offer. I made sure that the city were going to give us approval to put the bakery there in the first place. I wasn't buying a building without a bakery, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I walked into that building, I mean, it was run down, but I could see what you see there today. I could see all of that. I could see the elevator, because there's an elevator there. I could see the fridge. I could see the oven. I could see it all. And I wasn't ever going to do that until I got permission from the city, because that's how it works. But we didn't get any financing because the bank really dropped the ball. Like we applied for a $250,000 business loan that would cover the renovations and the purchase and all that. And I thought that was it. That's, you apply for it and you just wait and find out. And literally about 6 days before the closure of the real estate offer, you know, the bank got back to me and said, oh yeah, we need all this, They wanted me to do a whole new business plan. They wanted me to do months worth of work, and I could not do it. So I was like, so now what, you know? So we looked into our own finances, and our mortgage was up for renewal pretty soon after. So we basically just renewed our mortgage, and there was plenty of room there, and the building was cheap anyway, so we just took it out, no mortgage, literally on the bakery, but we just put it to their hands. And then we've, like, you know, not had a lot of money, but we've stored every little penny that we've had on the mortgage. So, I'm planning for freedom 50. That's what I'm going for,
There you go.
I'll have no money in the bank, but I won't have a mortgage either, hopefully.
So did you ever feel, though, just to maybe even contradict what Michael said about being able to sell it, that if you're no longer there, do you think it would actually still be worth anything?
I'd like to think it would be. I mean, I'm no guru, and but it's hard. You're in a small town and people know you. Like, I can't go to the grocery store sometimes without being recognised, and not that's a bad thing. It can be annoying. Sometimes you want to be off.
Yeah.
But I'd like to think it would be. So far we have a new employee, so I can't include everybody, right? But so far, there hasn't been anybody that's chomped at my heels to take it from me. You know what I mean? Maybe one day somebody will walk in that door and come to work us and say, it's time for you to do something else. Because I'm trying to renovate a house from 1896. I got a food trailer that I'm trying to put on the road. There's a million things I could do with that bakery now, because I have the capacity to do so much more that I can't do because I'm there all the time. I'm there on to the grindstone. If I could be alleviated in a lot of things, we could do more. When I'm away from the place, I'm getting calls and texts all the time, and it's difficult to be away. I think a lot of that's my fault. I've tried to have managerial roles, and it's hard to have managerial roles when you also treat them as brothers and sisters the best you can, because it doesn't go together. You know what I mean? Yeah. I want to be Gordon Ramsay in a lot of ways. I want to be able to talk people straight to their face and tell them exactly how I feel, but nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Yeah. Nobody likes me like that. When I'm real, when I say what I have to say, they don't like it. They get offended.
It's easy to hurt people, but a lot of the times you got to let that criticism roll off your back, especially in the entrepreneurship and business world.
That's how I feel, Yeah. Like I said, they want me at 16 getting abused every day, and many times after that. You know what I mean? I think a bit of, don't quote me on this, but a bit of abuse didn't hurt me. You know what I mean? Made me tougher. If somebody came into me and said, "Your croissants are terrible. It's time for you to either stop making them or do something else," I would go back and try to make them better. You know what I mean? I wouldn't cry and post on Instagram. It wouldn't happen.
So do you think the workforce generation that's coming up next is too soft?
I mean,
give us
give us an honest
answer.
100%. I have 3 children, 3 different people. The oldest fella's been spoiled, and he I had him. I was trying to rebirth him and have him working at the bakery for the summer, and I fired him.
Yeah.
And the 15-year-old wants to franchise the place. He's determined he could take it over, but he doesn't want to stay here. He wants to be some hotshot lawyer or something. He wants to be taking over the world in his own way. If he ever got his greasy mitts on that place, that would be Cinnabon before you know it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It'd be an Old Dublin Bakery everywhere, and maybe that's the best way to do it. And then my youngest she's just 10 in a couple of days' time, so we haven't really seen what she thinks of the place yet. She likes to eat the stuff, so But I definitely think that the people behind me are soft. Not that it makes them any worse. Say, I'm being careful here as best I can. I think there could be some changes in the next generation. I hired a person, and
so what do you think we got to do better to toughen up our
get fired
workforce?
A few times. Go out and get it on your ass a few times. Get away from the umbilical cord of always having a safety net, no matter how fucked up you make.
I don't think they care if they get fired a few times, but it's the safety net. What is the safety net, in your opinion?
Be homeless. Get a job or be homeless. No mommies and daddies.
Or government funding to back you up.
Yeah, like you hear college professors complain about how college kids are getting their parents to do the bidding. Like I don't like my kids do lessons and cadets and all this. Like I don't like having that interact. Like my kid's guitar teacher apologized. I was pissed off because I'm working at 2 a.m. and he's late getting a guitar lesson and I'm sitting outside. What the fuck is going on here? Like then he's texting me apologizing for keeping him late. I don't want to talk to the guitar teacher. No offense to him. I'm sure he's great. But my kid is almost 17. If he can't manage his own guitar lessons, you know what I mean? That's just an example.
Yeah.
Like if people can't manage their own lives, and you're at the age when you're employable, well, don't work for me. It's not going to work I'm going to offend you. You're going to get upset, and then you're going to go along online and you're going to complain about me. Like, that's the bottom line. And
Yeah.
sorry, I'm really showing my side here. You know, like, how come Gordon Ramsay can be a real asshole? I know he's a TV celebrity and all, but he's worth millions. How come he can do it and I can only do a little bit and still not get away?
Well, the
you know
thing is,
what I
I
mean?
think people like the honesty. You know, it's.
Do they?
But the thing is, I like.
When it's not directed at them.
No,
Right,
it's not
it's not
directed
directed
at
at
them.
them. Yeah.
Well, you know, for example, I had a girl start and you know, she couldn't do anything. She worked in a great place, worked multiple great places in town, came to a great resume, so I hired her. I was delighted to have her. She seemed lovely. When it came to it, you know, she was like a child, an almost 30-year-old child. You know, if you're an almost 30-year-old child, if you're in a job and you're not doing anything well, you have no skill set, and you openly declared, I can't use knives and I can't use spatulas, like basic skills that you're supposed to have after years in a bakery. And then after every stupid fucking task, whether it's do this or scoop a cookie, to look at your, you know, not your supervisors and look at them and say, are you proud of me? Are you proud of me? Like, just don't show up. Don't just like. I had 3 conversations with that person, and I just like that's I've had enough.
Yeah, it's not a good fit for sure.
Are you proud of me? Like, if my kids went into a job like that, I would be embarrassed. You know.
Yeah.
No offense to my kids, but I'm trying to raise. You know, Jenny says I'm like something from the Victorian era because I'm from a country that was in a recession until the 90s, you know. I'm the youngest of 10, all the fashioned Catholic family, and, you know, we worked or we died. That was your choices. There was no working seasonally. There was no working a couple of months a year and then being on unemployment for the rest of the year. There was no such thing as that, you know. If you were on welfare and all, you were poor, you know. There was no you know, turbo diesel pickup trucks and not working all the year. That doesn't exist where I come from. Where I come from, you want to get ahead in life, you work, and that's all there is. You get educated, you get work, and whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
And I came from a generation, you know, so the youngest of 10, you could get ahead by working. I don't know if that's the case anymore.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't seem like it. Like, the cost of living is so high and wages haven't kept up with it. I mean, props to you for paying your employees well.
Well, I don't want people to be sweating in their bed, not knowing if they can pay their phone bill or whatever. And we've really helped. I'm not trying to just big up myself. Like, when people have been short in the past, we've helped them out and not looked for it back. You know what I mean? Like, I've definitely sacrificed things for our staff because we want them to stay. We want them to be happy. We want them to be well-adjusted people and show up and work hard when it really counts. Right. So sometimes when they complain and they moan and they whatever, or they get upset with me, because it happens all the time. I mean, it hurts. I take it personally, but I try not to. I take it personally when I know that my life is now going to be sacrificed in some way or other because they're offended or upset because I said something wrong. You know, I'm not aggressive. I don't talk down to these people. I thoroughly respect these people, and I tell them all the fucking time. If I had a boss like me, I'd be further ahead in life because I would have been encouraged to be better than what I am. And I try to encourage that. But unfortunately, not everybody sees that. Not everybody sees that I'm on their side, you know. I want them. It only makes sense for me to have the best employees and the happiest employees because it'll make the best business. If you know, if you're going to come in and loud about the place and complain and talk about your fucking bruised feelings all the time, the business can't grow like that, you know.
Right.
And all these terms and, you know, cancelling culture that we live in. I mean, you know, I try to dodge that the best I can every day, you know, like most people, I guess. But it's just like, you know, you can hear me talk now. Like, try to say what I feel, and it doesn't always work, I guess, you know.
I think cancel culture might be on the way out in some senses.
So to say.
We're really rebounding now from being too far politically left to swinging back, and hopefully not too far right. But we're seeing a lot of people re-speak about free speech, which is lovely because in Canada they've really harped down on what I would consider free speech.
You know, Newfoundland is also 20 years behind everywhere else. So maybe we're only getting cancel culture here. You know what I mean? Just right, you know.
That's true.
Oh, no,
That's true.
don't say that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, Newfoundland is behind. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
You know, like the outfits that people wear, they were elsewhere 20 years ago. You know what I mean?
It's always been like that. I've been thinking that the gap has narrowed in recent decades with technology and social media, and the advancement of the internet over the past 20, 25 years and things like that.
And some people say it's almost like we have a looking glass here. Like we can look elsewhere and say, okay, now we can kind of pivot and see what's coming a little bit. So that's nice too, the fact that we are a little bit behind.
But, you know, the thing is, though, we still have the garbage chain stores all the time, and we still have, you know, these nonsense stuff that will just come in and just take from the economy as much as possible and send it to America or mainland or wherever it is, and put nothing back into the community. You know what I mean? And disposable clothing, disposable everything that people have. People waste them. When people will complain and say, "Oh my God, this is your handmade item that's taken 4 days to produce and sleepless nights is very expensive. I'm going to Five Guys. I'm going to spend $35 on a goddamn burger that's been cooked by a 17-year-old who doesn't give a fuck about that job." You know what I mean? Like I think people need to be real, and you know, especially in the food industry, like people need to realize that if, like, the bottom line is, if we don't come in and show up, like, we will suffer. You told me before we started a restaurant that's going. We learn it every day here that there's another restaurant going. And I don't want to be that way, but I know it's very, very possible, no matter how good we are.
It's one business I personally would never touch, is the food industry, the restaurant business. I think it's the margins are too small. I think it's way too hard, and I don't think I have it in me at this point in my life with 2 kids and trying to possibly slow down a bit to do 3 a.m. mornings and to work the holidays and to work the weekends, because
the holidays are tough. I'll be honest.
They have to be tough.
You know, we're 6 weeks from Christmas, which is our busiest time. I would like it to be a little bit busier, but we'll get there. You know, when all of you guys are spending time with your family and closing in to the mince pies that we spent making them and really enjoying the best time of the year, for many people, we're suffering in a lot of ways the most, you know.
You're at work.
We're suffering, and when we open Christmas Eve, like, people need to know it's fucking Christmas, and just smile and just chill out, just relax, you know. Just because I'm the owner and you'll see me most times when you come in, doesn't mean you can get at me, you know. Come in and chill out, relax, enjoy what we do if that's what you like, you know. Like, the Christmas is a stressful time. Like, you know, I mentioned my father. Like, I didn't get to grieve for my father last year. I didn't get to mourn my father. You know, the cherry on the cake was, not only did I miss a funeral from rolling cookies, we were having a staff party at my house when I got the phone call to tell me that my father had died. So while the staff was sitting, I got the phone call. Like, so I've never got to grieve. So, like, that's just an example of the shit that we go through in the food industry, you know. We work the holidays, we suffer. And I know we only open 4 days a week, but it takes us 6 days a week to do what we do. And I try to get Sunday off, but this week I was working Sunday, and many Sundays I'm working. And Sundays is the day that I try to beg for forgiveness with my children for ignoring them all week, you know what I mean? Because in the end of the day, one day I will be dead, just like everybody else. And it won't really matter if I'm good at making cinnamon buns. None of that will be relevant anymore. So, you know, I know it sounds I don't know, essential or whatever that word is. I can't say it right now. It's just like, I try to do the best I can, like everybody else, and knowing quite well that you know, one day I'll be no more. So just be kind to everybody. Just be relaxed, chill out. You know, as Christmas comes in, just try to relax and enjoy it.
You know, someone once said to me, because I do a lot of that, a lot of apologizing to my kids that I got to go, and weekends now, the past weekends past, I've had to go, and they're home, and I've got to explain to them, well, I have deadlines to meet, and this is our busiest time of year as well. And someone once said to me, the only people that will remember that you had to go to work on a Saturday in 20 years is your kids.
I know. I don't try to think like that, because I know the business will fail if I think like that. If I give up going to work, I'm not bad. There's lots of me, you know, not to be talking dismal. There's lots of me that wish I could do things differently. Like, I was very, very good at mathematics when I was a kid, and I think I probably had a bright future in a lot of that stuff. And but I just didn't want to do the schoolwork. I didn't want to sit behind a desk all day long. I just didn't want to do it. You know, if I was to do this all again, I would 100% be diagnosed with ADHD. Like, this is classic symptoms right here, you know. But I don't look for medication. I don't look for any fidget toys. I'm not trying to insult, you know. Things were different then. I take that energy and put it into something else, you know what I mean? I don't twitch over it. I twitch, but you know, that's not why. I just I just try to focus on something.
I think that's the best medication. I put myself very much in that same boat. I think the best thing for a busy mind are busy hands.
Yeah, the croissants I find, this is a sneak preview. If I ever write a book, one of the chapters will be called "The Tears Make the Croissants Taste Better," because you've no idea how many emotional breakdowns I've had and I've witnessed over while you're doing croissants, because it's labor intensive and it's mindless. It's a dough and you have to beat it into a shape and you roll it, and you don't have to think when you're doing the croissants. It's all template. It's on machines. You just do it. And oh my God, I've cried into croissants so many times in my life.
That's the secret.
That's why they're so solid.
Yeah, and staff. I've seen staff when it comes to working, I try to encourage staff to do whatever it takes to get the work done and keep themselves happy. And if they're having a beer at 8:00 on a Thursday night while they're making croissants, so be it. Don't drive home drunk, and don't get yourself in trouble or whatever it is. It's a free world, and I don't look at beer as poison. And if it gets you through the day, whatever happens, you know what I mean? Christmas, sure, have a Bailey's in your coffee, whatever it takes. We're not getting drunk in a bakery, but you know what I mean? We're also people trying to have a life and trying to enjoy what we do.
I think it's a much more healthy approach to alcohol. I noticed that a lot when I was in Europe for some traveling. I went to France specifically. And just the culture there around alcohol was so much more chill and laid back. And I believe the alcohol abuse there was way, way less than it is here as well.
We don't binge drink. People famously think Irish people are alcoholics. We're social drinkers. You go to the pub because that's where you see your friends. And you have your 3% alcohol Guinness pint that wouldn't get you drunk if you tried. You know what I mean? Guinness is less alcohol in Ireland. We sit down cozy in the pub because your house is too cold that you can't stay there anyway. You know what I mean? That's how we approach alcohol. Here, you hide in your shed, the girls stay in the kitchen, and you drink as much as possible in the shortest time possible. Yeah. I think we have a much nicer approach to alcohol than Newfoundlanders do, As Irish as you can be, you're not seeing it the way we're seeing it, We're not alcoholics. We don't go drinking at 7 a.m. on Paddy's Day. We don't dress head to toe in green and act like fools and eat. It doesn't happen. It's a family day. We have a beautiful parade. There's all kinds of floats and carnivals and all this kind of stuff. And it's spring. It's deep spring at that stage for us. You might cook a turkey or have a nice dinner with your family, go for a drive, and that's how we approach Paddy's Day. We don't we don't end up in hospital with alcohol poisoning.
You go, Mike.
I think that's...
I don't expect to see you at 7 a.m. next year, right? So.
And I don't think either of us are into that side of things anyway. But that's a really valuable insight, because what it leads me to think is that that's been commercialized in some way, and I feel like that
drives me crazy. Yeah. People come to me expecting me to be the king of it all, because I'm Irish. CBC interviewed me on the phone at the bakery, and they asked if I could interview me for Paddy's Day, and I'm like, great. This is the approach I'm going to have with them. They don't want to hear it. They had me live on the radio. They don't want to hear it. They wanted me to talk about the booze bags lining up to O'Reilly's 7 a.m. getting loaded drunk. Just put yourself in your situation. It makes me feel that people think Irish people are dumb alcoholics, just foolish, will throw everything to the wayside to get legless drunk. That's not how we are. That's not how alcohol is in Europe. We're, might be bigger drinkers in some ways, but we don't abuse it. We abuse it when we're teenagers and early 20s, college years. But then as adults, it's a part of life the same way, a glass of wine to a French person is,
Yeah, it's a better approach.
I think so. I mean, to be able to sit down at Christmas dinner, and don't get me wrong, we've all had a bit too much to drink on Christmas Day or whatever. But my mother's never drank her whole life. She's what we call a pioneer. Probably don't have that term for that here. But in Ireland, it's a thing that the fearful Catholics would take a pledge at the confirmation and swear that they would never drink the whole life.
Wow.
And my mother was very religious. She is very religious. And she took the pledge, is what they say. And, she's had the 60-year pin or 70-year pin. She's in her 80s now. So she's done it all. But I remember 2 occasions that my mother got accidentally drunk, and it was the funniest thing. Even as a kid, the sherry trifle, she didn't know. She thought it was a fruit trifle on Christmas Day, and she had a second helping and started to feel tipsy. And then there was another Christmas Day. It was both on Christmas days. when my siblings were older in their 20s and cosmopolitans, bohemians, wanted to drink wine, coming home for Christmas, bringing the bottles of wine. Well, somebody wanted to include my mother and brought the non-alcoholic wine. Well, of course, accidentally got mixed up, and my mother was lashing into the real wine, and like crying Christmas Day on the table, crying, how could you do it? Like paranoid, like all of the worst symptoms of being drunk because she never drank, But anyway,
that's a good story, though.
Yeah, hopefully she forgave.
She wouldn't like me talking about this. My mother's you keep that stuff to yourself. When my mother comes, sorry, Ma, it's out.
No, it's all good. Is there anything, Ryan, that you want to chat about that we haven't really touched on yet? I feel like we've covered a lot of.
I know
good
I've
stuff.
gone a long way off topics, but
there's no script here.
Yeah. I guess I feel paranoid in a lot of ways about that stuff. People love it, and maybe I should be more storytelling stuff for a living. I love stand-up comedy, and I'd love to take a crack at it, but probably never happen. But maybe one day. But the thing is, this is life. People talk, I'm the youngest of 10. If I didn't speak, I would have died hungry many, many years ago because they wouldn't have heard me. Irish people were the gift of the gab, right? We got it.
So did Michael tell you where we originate the podcast from, how this started?
No.
Well, we've been friends for a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 years. Let's call it 10 years.
Yeah.
Actually, we met at the farmers markets.
Look at the Old Dublin. Look what the Old Dublin brings to the community.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Do I get royalties off this podcast? That's what's next for me.
Once we monetize it, we'll talk.
Yeah.
But it was Old Dublin Bakery was one of the staples, and then Curry Delight.
Yeah.
Those were like our go-tos. What we would get every time we would go to the market.
So do you still go to the farmers market?
We do, yeah, just not as much.
Not as much,
Not as frequent as we should.
Here, I'm going to be the host now. Why?
We found, myself and Jane just found that the weekends with the kids get so busy with their activities, going to soccer or music.
I feel the farmers market has worsened, in a lot of ways. It's unfortunate. When we were at the old location with the Lions Club, it was a community market.
It felt
so much
much
better.
So much better. Like I could have my full day sales in the box on the table, and I'd say to my vendor beside me, "I'm going to the washroom. I'm going to get a bite. See you later. I'll come back," and that vendor would be working my table for me, still selling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were a community. Like me and some of the people, I'd bring a couple, 3 or 4 beers, and while we were packing up our tables at the end of the day, we'd be having a little beer and enjoying our lives. We finish at 2:00. So I used to work overnight. I'd get up like 10 or 11 at night, doing it from home, and work all the way overnight, rush to get in the car, fly down the Allendale Road to get it set up, and 2:00, no matter how busy or slow you were, you would finish at 2 as a reasonable time, and it was summer, and it was your day.
So there's a theme that we have going here, this conversation, and we talked about it before we actually turned the cameras on.
Yeah.
About a different restaurant that closed down. They started in a smaller space, they went to a bigger space, and we were talking about how great the beginning was. Now we're talking about how great the farmers market was when it was in a smaller space. The space we're in now is undoubtedly better.
Much better.
But why is it that we're reminiscing of the beginnings of different things, different restaurants, the farmers market, and so on? Why is it that when something grows, somehow, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, they lose that little something that originated with that and made it special?
Well, pre-COVID was real,
Yeah.
2016 and
that's
2020. 2016 and 2020 was probably the best food scene that St. John's ever had. We had Raymond's best restaurant in the country.
That's
2
true.
years in a row.
Yeah.
And that tanked. And that couldn't maintain itself. It was probably crazy expensive to run that restaurant, highest caliber that there is. The last time I went in there for brunch, it looked like a disheveled shadow of its former self, you know what I mean?
Oh, no.
When I first used to go there for dinner, trust me, I wasn't going there often. It was high end, but it was an experience that left you talking for months. The last going off, unfortunately, I didn't feel it was what it used to be. St. John's, oil industry, whatever it was, has gone through a massive decline. And as long as the chain restaurants are lined up every day and they're just setting up, how many goddamn burger joints do we need here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
if we had
absolutely.
one good one, you can have your chains, your fast food. I understand that because we had that in Ireland too, but we don't have all of them. We have a very few. And when you put a McDonald's in a heritage building or a small town in Ireland, you don't even notice it because they're not allowed redo the place, you know. Here they destroy the city by just churning the shit out, you know. And as for the farmers market was beautiful, and the opportunity to have the new location was beautiful. But they have a board of volunteers. Half of them are made up of the vendors, so they obviously have a vested interest for themselves. And you know, they went from one part-time employee and one full-time employee to, I don't know, 5, 6 full-time employees. So now people have to get paid, and it's a corporation now. It's not the farmers market that it was. You know, it was not that beautiful feel. Vendors were so happy to have you. We're so happy you showed up. Sell your wares. Do you need any help? Do you need any change? What can we do for you? See you next week. It turned into you're working for me. You have to be here. Like, I can't tell you how many times they would get out measuring tapes and put me on chalk fucking lines and say, don't budge from this, and charge me extra because I brought another table still in my space. But you know, they looked at me like a cash cow because you know, maybe I think I was the busiest vendor there at the height of my popularity there. And instead of just drawing on that and saying, let's build this market from this person. He wants to show up every day and he puts his whole heart and soul into it. No matter what the weather, no matter what it was, I was there doing the best I could, supporting it. And I'd spend so much money there. I'd spend $200 there every week. You know, I'd buy my groceries there. You know, instead of that, they saw me as a problem, too big, time to go. I had a food truck, you know, you guys know, I had a food truck, a beautiful food truck. I spent 4 months flipping it, spent 40 grand, which was a lot of money to me then, because I was talking, you're talking about my profit was probably, you know, 1,500 a week or whatever, but that's before taxes and everything, you know. So, you know, a 40 grand food truck that I built up on cash, beautiful old pure leather truck. It was the talk of the town. Everybody was talking about it. And I wanted to park it outside and still be there, still bring the crowd, hundreds of people. I used to see over 200 people on Saturday on a busy day. Yeah. Still wanted to bring them there. They split the ranks. They said, no, it's time to go. You can't be here. And I said, but you watched me do it. But literally the week before I got the keys back and the van back, they said no. And so I went from a shoe in, know where I'm going, to the next week not knowing what I could do with the business.
So you feel like they turned their back on you?
100%. And at the time, Telegram got a sniff at it and they died and wanted a story. I didn't give them a story. I gave them a positive story of, we have a truck now. Come see us. Look out for us, you know.
Good on you.
I didn't want to, I had a massive axe to grind. But, you know, the farmers market will never be as good as it was, in my opinion, without being liable. It will never be as good as it was with the person that's in charge, because the person in charge now, and still the same when I was there, they don't see it the way I see it. And the way I saw it was a community market. Everybody's vested interest at heart and mind. If you know, do your best, bring the people, and everybody will benefit. They see it like we own you and you owe us. Like, you know, people would have the next door table to me, identical space and sizing and everything, and they would think they don't do as well as you, and they would charge me more, double, three times as much as them, for no reason, just because they saw me. But I'd be like, but I had to pay more to be here because it cost me more, ingredients cost me this, that, and the other. They don't, you know, they didn't see it that way. They saw, let's cash cow this guy, you know.
Wow.
And instead of keeping me there, and you know how many times people have told me over the years, I don't go to farmers market anymore because you don't go. And it sounds lousy, but I would be there. I'd be there tomorrow if I could be. You know, it's one of the, you know, the business has been held back and pushed back so many times in the almost 10 years of in operation, and I've overcome every single bit of it. But, you know, that was one that's negatively impacted my business and negatively impacted the whole farmers market. And they could simply undo it by just saying, like, come back. And I got a trailer I'm putting back on the road. I've actually applied for the food license. I got a little trailer. It's like a little version of the old truck, similar color scheme, same decor type of thing, except now I have a shop and a full commercial kitchen. The plan is to just load it up every day like the truck. There's no less mobility. I got a beautiful new car to go with it, and it's a 40th anniversary model, so it has all these retro decals and shit on it. So the trailer and the new car, It's a thing. It looks like something you'll see.
So we're gonna bring it.
Oh, well, I'm going to write to the farmers market and ask to go back. And if they don't have me, that's going to be on them. You know what I mean? I like the only reason I want to go back is not to grovel. I'm going to go back to say, it's Christmas time. You know what I mean? I can almost see the farmers market from our shop. You know, we don't have the same customers much anymore. You know what I mean? Because they've put a big massive wedge for politics rather than see what's actually best for the farmers market and say, like when we were doing the farmers market, we were doing the night market, like you said at St. Thomas's, we were doing all events and everyone we did was killer, and not just because of us, but we helped, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, I mean, you know, there's vendors up there say they can't make the table fee. The first day we opened there, I know things will die off, but the first day we opened there, we had so many, I hate this term, influencers and everything come by, all these selfies and CBC interview. Every time you turned around, there was a camera in your face. We had like 15 or 14,000 people come that first day because everybody was anticipating it. And 4 months, I was there for a year and a half in that new location. I mean, we had 4,000 and 5,000 people every Saturday coming by. I used to max out, sell out at about 400 or 500 people sales. I'd have 400 or 500 sales a day. I don't know what to get now. But what, you know, anytime I ever go over there on Saturday afternoon, it's like bones, you know. It's unfortunate.
It sounds like you could be a good anchor tenant.
That's what I wanted to be. I was that.
You could draw.
I was that. I used to be friends with everybody. You know what I mean? Like no matter how I felt about them, no matter how I felt about me, I knew not everybody liked me because some tenants will complain, some vendors will complain that my lineup would snake around the table and be blocked in. Other vendors will say, your lineup is excellent. People are buying off me while they're waiting in line. You know what I mean? I was willing to work with everybody. I was willing to be put in the corner away from everybody in the cafe part. If that helped the lineup, I was willing to go outdoors in the shag and cold in a truck that the heating didn't always work and the insulation wasn't that great. I was willing to do whatever it took to keep us all together because a lot of the people are still my friends. When I go up there, like I have a job getting out, you know, because there's so many lovely people up there, and we were all together, and then they told me out of it, and. I you know, it might sound egotistical, but I feel it was detrimental to everybody, me included, and my business, for no reason, only spite. And unfortunately, without being too critical, I feel there's a lot of that. And St. John especially, if you do well, and people have the notion you do well, you get people try to take you down, you know. Maybe that's too much.
No, it's you know, I've heard it as well. It happens.
Like I have no interest. My business, you know, I did business studies in college too. The number one priority for a for-profit business is to make money. That's all I'm in it for. I'm only in it to make money, and that sounds shallow. It just so happens that I'm able to create a business around a passion of mine, which is great. If I could create a business around playing guitar, that'd be even better. But I'm not that good. So, you know, you know what I mean? I really am. I can, you know, whatever. Or if I could create a business out of mowing the lawn, whatever, you know what I mean? Passion for me is baking. I've been able to create a business. I have no interest in tearing down farmers markets or any vendors or anybody around me. I know that if I was doing well at the farmers market and everybody else was doing well at the farmers market, that means I could do well again. And you know, I'd love to have someone in the back, but they'll never have me. Well, it'll never happen. I know.
Give it a try.
Yeah, give it a try.
Yeah, because I don't give a shit what you think about me. I'd walk in there. When I walk in on a Saturday afternoon, I hold my head high. I did nothing wrong.
Oh my
sure,
God.
It was a bit of a piss take. I took the truck and parked across the street. I don't know if you remember that one.
I do.
It was a bit of a piss take. I was desperate to keep my customers, and my customers were across the street. I spent 3.5 years building that customer base, and now they're going to kick me out of it. I didn't deserve that just because I got better. Anyway, you know, the only reason I bought the damn truck in the first place is because I needed a van. I was renting U-Hauls every shagging week to get to them because there's so much product, you know. And the only van I could afford was a 26-foot long pure lead truck. It was $8,000 used, driving, ready to go. And I could have bought a shagging little tiny Dodge 2-door job, but they were 15 and 20,000, you know.
Yeah.
So I bought a stupid $8,000 rig, you know.
Well, now it makes a good business story of, you know, the ups and downs of business and taking those kicks when you know, you think you're on the way up and you invest and you go in a certain direction, and then someone hauls you back
Like the
down.
week before, the week before. Like I when I was told, the worst part is not like nobody had the balls to actually just tell me. It was the cronies were sent out to tell me you don't have a table here next week. So I live my life like a movie, and I just went to the office. What do you mean I'm not here next week? What are you talking? What's this gibberish? And she hadn't talked to me in months. She didn't associate with me, and for nothing. Why? Because I was good at what I did. And obviously, guys, remember, I used to follow the table from nothing, you remember? And I was a little shop. I had multiple refrigerators. I had displays. It was like a tiny cafe. And when I'd sell out, it would be all put away, and it was like I was never even there. It felt like all my tables were foldable. I put hinges on shit. It was like I felt like I was building forts every day. I really put effort in. And when they told me it was time to go, I said no. I said no fucking way. I said you go to the board and you tell the board what's going on here. And then a couple of days later, I got an email from the board to tell me that I was gone, and there was no food trucks allowed in the policies. And one of my friends on the board, and I mean, I'd call her a friend, but it was so. She said it's okay, but policies can be changed. And I said, but I'm out. Like you're kicking me out. So then I put the skates on, and that was a Tuesday maybe. I nailing this health inspector, nailing the city, nailing the propane inspector, nailed the fire at St. John's, nailed everybody to get all the certificates I needed. And by Friday, I got the email to say, we're coming to stick your fucking license on the truck today. Where is it parked? And the farmer's market was the next day. And I got that email, and then that afternoon, I got the email from the farmer's market saying that we've changed the policies and we're going to have food trucks there, but you'll have to go into a pool. And you apply for a space, and it's between all the other food trucks, one space. Now, I don't know if you've ever noticed, the farmer's market has all the outdoor outlets. The original plan for the farmer's market, right from the inception, was to have a lineup of food trucks. If you've ever travelled anywhere outside of St. John's, there's food trucks everywhere. People love food trucks. Farmer's market loved one food truck at a time, I guess, So I was like, I can't risk going into a pool. I can't risk it. I'm either in or out. That's the way it was.
Some certainty there. Yeah.
So then I wrote a big long-winded email, and I basically told them to shove it in your face. Told them to get on. I said, you're detrimental to the market. You're destroying it. But I told them how I felt.
Yeah.
Told them that they made the wrong decision with the executive director, and I told them that, instead of actually, supporting the vendors and encouraging the market to grow and be a thing, you turn it down out of spite, and that's why I'm sure they'll never have me back. And it's funny because when the Telegram wrote that story, it was all positive. I talked about, we'll move on to the next step, folks, and come on and see us. But the funniest part about it is the photographer had to come take photos of the truck in the driveway when me stood like this in front of the truck, because the shagging thing wouldn't start. It was sitting in the driveway for 6 days. 6 days, because it was, that's how it was. And I remember selling from the truck, and instead of going up the road across the street in the market like I wanted, I literally put it in neutral and rolled it from my driveway to Freshwater onto the street, put it in park, and sold from across the road from my house, because I wouldn't move and I couldn't afford not to sell, But I told them to stick it up their arse. I burned that bridge, I guess, and I went on my road, and it was struggles. It was a struggle, but I feel once I got to Churchill Square, I saw the Churchill Square one day, I made a connection with Jackie Fagan up there, who's been there for decades, and she welcomed me in, and we killed it. It was like some of a comedy routine. I'd pull up in the truck, and there'd be a lineup waiting for me to nowhere, and like people would be laughing. They'd be trying to guess the parking space I'm trying to take.
No way.
They'd be lined up to see where I'm going to park. It was brilliant. And
I gotta be honest, that's something I've noticed with the Old Dublin Bakery that I haven't really seen anywhere else. It seems like you have some die-hard people who are just like, they want your goods.
We're doing stuff that other people aren't doing, but I could use some more diehards. Like, I won't get into it, but we're going through probably the biggest challenge right now that we've ever faced. And I mean, it's the type of challenge that if we didn't own the building, if we were paying rent, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation, because it would probably already be too late for me. I'd be trying to have to go find a fucking job, working for somebody else, and I'm really at the stage I can't be nailed down now. Like if I had to go do this, as much as I might like the idea of just getting up and on the paycheck and going home every day, I really don't think I could do that again. Unless, you know, if it was Georgetown or some place that the people are really nice, maybe I could. But you know, back to the point that I was dealing with really. Like the things we're dealing with right now, like will impact my children's future, and all I can do is try put my head down and try to make sure that our product is as good as it can be, and try to waste as little as possible, and really reach out to people and say, like, please come and see us. Like, please don't buy the bread at the grocery store. We've lowered the price on bread. Our bread is now cheaper than the grocery store because we're desperate to get you there, and that's the bottom line. Like people might give us the impression that we're expensive. You can go to Jungle Jim's or one of these garbage places and get a frozen cheesecake slice for $12, or you can come in and get something handmade for $6. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
We're not that expensive, but we have a lot of people have a lot of pre-notions about us that maybe we are, no parking, this, that, and the other. Like, if you want us to stay there, I mean, the bottom line is we need the customers. They're the food, all that's important. But with no customers, we got no business.
On that note, before you go ahead,
Sorry.
I bought 6 treats from another bakery downtown a little while ago, and it came to around $40.
Yeah.
And then I bought 6 treats from your spot a couple days later, and it was probably $10 or $12 less. And also, you're certainly not expensive for the market that's out there in the baking world. Expensive is not really something that's came to mind when I think of all.
We do get it. Depends it depends what part of Newfoundland you're from. You know, don't get me wrong. People love us and they travel across the island, across the country for us. But you know, every once in a while, people try to make deals with us, and I try to be polite and say, you know, I understand that you might want 6 cookies, but it doesn't make them any cheaper to make. You know what I mean? 1 cookie costs the same amount as 6 times 6. You know, to make it. It's no cheaper I can't go to Costco or to my Atlantic Groceries and say, I'm buying all this now, give me a deal. It doesn't happen. So I just can't pass that on. I do have marketing employees. We've got cookie boxes at the moment. We're selling $42 worth of cookies. Like if you were to buy them all, plus tax, you're talking about $48. I'm selling that for $34 now, started today.
Wow.
Just because I got to get you in the door. You know, come in, buy a cookie box. And, you know, like people are thinking, you know, $34 is a lot for cookies. But, you know, you'll buy a cookie here and you'll buy a cookie there, and if you add them all up, you're saving over $10, $15 for, and it's Christmas, so we're hoping that people are, you know, are coming in to spend, ready to spend, you know.
So you said you've been doing this for 10 years.
The bakery itself, I turned on the oven, I called it the Old Dublin Bakery. You know, maybe the very start of November 2015. So pushing 10.
And a lot of people say when you start a business, depending on the industry, once you get past the first 3, 4, 5 years, I don't like the saying, but it gets easier. But I don't feel like it's gotten easier for yourself. Sitting here listening to you.
I live that's the kind of life I live. I mean, part of it is my fault. You know I'm not as organized as I could be, but I'm so overwhelmed on a daily basis. You know, I'm so overwhelmed. Like, you know, earlier on, I was you know, looking forward to coming here, and you know, I literally had 40 minutes something off. You know, I had 40 minutes to myself, and I thought to myself, like I was feeling anxious in a way to come here, thinking like, what am I going to say? Like, am I going to say too much? But Jenny warned me, like, you can't drop us in this. Like,
right.
Don't go in there and like represent yourself well, represent the business. So I put on a Bill Burr show and I had a cup of tea and I was watching a bit of comedy just to try to chill out. And, you know, I came over, I don't live far now, but I came over in the short drive, feeling good to come here. But, like, you know, I struggle every day. Like, you know, everybody talks about mental health issues. Like, you know, I probably have more mental health issues than several people put together. But I don't advertise them. I don't talk about them and say, oh, I can't do this today because I'm struggling. And not to try to make fun or make light. I just don't operate that way. I don't give in to these demons, and I carry many of them. You know what I mean? But I just, you know, it's like pluck and pep and whatever you want to call it. I just put my head down, try to do the work, and I know it's going to be bullshit. Like I said, the challenge we're facing right now, you know, it's you know, it's criminal, not on my end, you know, and then it's like you know, we've had break-ins. You know, just when I started the shop, I had 2 break-ins. There was no real only a bit of glass, nothing. They didn't get anything. At the same time, they broke into the house twice. They stole my fucking hand-built motorcycle. They trashed it. These teenagers had it, and in a day and a half, they trashed it. The only one of the problems, like, they cashed that in for insurance because it was gone. It wasn't going to come back. I could have fixed it, but they wrote it off because to fix it was worth more than the bike. And, and then I had $4,000 worth of tools. Like, there's so much of me as I sit here talking to you guys, which, by the way, I'm really enjoying. Someone has to listen to me anyway. But as I sit here on the eve of my 20th anniversary in this place, a place that so much of my time here I fucking hated. I've hated this place so much. I have to reflect and think, it could be worse, It could be so much worse than what it is. And some people might say, look, and you should be grateful, but I took everything I ever had. I didn't get anything. Anytime I got good at something, somebody was there to try to push me back and hold me back. But I went and took it anyway, It's like with the city. I went on my 40th birthday. I rented a fucking excavator for $250 or whatever it was, and without looking at the schematics, I dug a hole in the side of the bakery to try and put a new water line in. But it's 1940s building, so which it shouldn't be. But the next door neighbour's drainage crosses over our driveway, which shouldn't be. But I didn't look, and I broke the terracotta pipe. So there you go, St. John's. I admit it, I did it. So anyway, I dug a hole and broke the pipe, and so then I had to basically fix the drainage from our building and their building and wall upgrade the water line. St. John's were furious. I gave them every bullshit excuse. And they wanted me to upgrade the water lines to the other side of Mary Meeting, which would have been $100,000. They wanted me to shut down Mary Meeting Road. You imagine what the flags people would do for that intersection on a one person's dime. Some of these massive contracting jobs. But I talked my way out of it. I was able to upgrade from the street to the building. I paid the contractor in cash. I was able to get through it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I know I put some of this stuff on myself. Planning, it could be much, much better. But, I feel like I'm living an adventure in a lot of ways, just trying to get through,
I feel like you've got a few exciting things on the horizon. One is that new vehicle with that trailer attached. So I'm excited to see what you're going to do with that. And now it sounds like you've got a Keystone employee that's really going to...
several Keystone. I don't want to sell if the former employee's short. Nobody's perfect, and there's definitely some polishing that could be done. But I feel that the reason why I'm talking about this new employee so much, one, is because I don't have to get up at 2 a.m. tomorrow. Nice. It's a big deal. I got up at 4 today, and that was like a different life. It's the first time in months I got up at 4 a.m. and it was like I know. It's little victories, right? No, but to be able to sit down and because I'm awake at 4 a.m. anyway. I wouldn't need to set an alarm for 4 a.m. And to be able to just walk in the door and know that there's something already happening. Something's going on here. And really, without selling any of the previous employees short, she really is she's the person I've been looking for, the person who I have a hard time keeping up with, and proving my point that, yes, that job could always have been done better. So in the past, when I told a former employee that, you can do more, it's not enough just to say I'm here, I'm trying to show you that this job can be done better. And I was always told, and literally they'd gang up on me to defend that employee, to tell me that it couldn't be done better. When I took it over, when they did leave, when I took it over, I was doing it better. And now this new employee, set 2 weeks in, is doing it better than I did. And so I think the future's bright. Basically, that's all it takes. I hired a Ukrainian person months ago. I was already getting there. Hiring a Ukrainian person is one of the best things I've ever done. And then if that's, and I may sound positively prejudiced or whatever, but if that's a reflection of the rest of the people from Ukraine, they are amazing people.
The people I've met from Ukraine are amazing workers.
Hardworking, professional, diligent, and she doesn't really speak. Her English is great. She doesn't think it is. It's gotten much better. She understands me. So most of the time. So today, for the first time since she started working there, we get Ukrainians in every day. And we have 2 guys in particular, and they're mathematicians. They're really intelligent, high-level people. They're the sweetest guys you've ever met. They're like little boys. No offense to them. They're really nice. I love speaking to them. I gave him a sourdough starter, the only person I ever have given it. He's making his own bread. On Saturday he's coming on. He can't get rye flour, so I'm going to give him some rye flour. Like these are really nice people. So today, by chance, I was chatting his ear off. She came down the stairs and they bumped into each other. And I've been telling each other for months about each other. And not to step them up, and she's a married woman. I don't know, he's probably a married man. Just the fact, if it was me, I would like an Irish person. They don't see it like that.
No, they don't at all.
They don't see it like that.
They don't even, in fact, it's the opposite. They don't want to associate with Ukrainians because they want to assimilate to our culture. And they
but
think
they
that's
do
kind of
have a culture. Like she does have a community of Ukrainian people, all of that kind of stuff. But in that role, I was thinking about this. I felt bad because I didn't put him on the spot. I quickly introduced him, and they said hello to each other. And she kind of had her head down, and he kind of looked shy. And I was thinking, that's not how I expected that to go. But I thinking about it after. In their culture, like she's the employee and he's the customer. She probably sees herself as the servant, and he probably sees himself as the customer. Has to be official. I don't. We don't get it. If that was 2 Irish people, we'd be going to the bar that night. You know what I mean? I'm not the one. That doesn't go back. I want to say it earlier about the alcoholism. We'd be socialising.
It's a socialising.
Socialising. But it was. I guess it was eye opening. She's a phenomenal person. I hope again, she's applying for a permanent residency now. I hope, I was able to, with me and her, I was able to prove that we no longer needed 2 other employees who coincidentally left short time after each other. And, they were 2 longer term employees, and everybody would expect me to sweat. I asked one guy, I said to him, you don't have to leave, we can, if it's just, because he told me it was a schedule that was making him do it. And I said, you don't have to leave. We can do something with your schedule. We can make it work. And then he insisted he wanted to leave. And I said, okay. When the other person actually quit on the spot, it didn't faze me. The first thing, and no offense to her, it just wasn't working. It just wasn't working. She was not what we're going to work with the business, and I was not the boss that she wanted to have. So that was just it. So with this new Ukrainian person, I proved that those 2 could go, and it's me and her can do this. And now, when I have this other person, now I can hopefully embrace and take control and grow the business the next step. Which, back to your original question, I got this beautiful little trailer. It's funny. It's I came from Colliers, Central. Not Central, up the road there. And there was I was an old man and son selling hamburgers and hot dogs and all. And it was called the Great Big Lunchbox. It is. I'd have to draw it. It looks like an oil tank, but about 5 times bigger. It's flat and oval on top, and it's fiberglass. It's like it's built on a 5x8 trailer. It's a tiny little thing, and I've never seen anything like it. I was like, what is this? Is this a septic tank or something? But in it was a little micro kitchen, 2 fryers, refrigerator, running water, a pump, hot water, all of this kind of stuff. Like a beautiful, the whole side of it opens up and the shelf falls down. It looked like something from the 80s. But I found it on Facebook Marketplace. The old fella had a stroke. The son didn't want to do it anymore. It was only a gig, whatever, on the side. They sold to another fella him and his son wanted to do a wing truck, like wings. I would tell him don't do wings because you can't afford them. But anyway, them 2 guys are like 6'2", 6'3", and there's only 6'1" headroom in the truck. And I went and looked at it. I showed him on my motorbike. I was taking my kid to soccer. I had him on the back of the bike. Showed up just to look because it was on the road. And I brought cash in my pocket just in case. I had my $1,000 down. I said, there you go. I'm coming back with the car next time. And I didn't even know what the fuck it was. I thought it was this bizarre looking thing, but I saw potential. The food truck killed. We killed it with the food truck. I sold the truck after 3 months after opening the bakery because the bakery was everything. And the poor truck sat in my driveway for 3 months doing nothing. Got to the point I could go out and start it and take it around the block now. Wouldn't even fire on 8 cylinders. It'd be choppy. And it was an old vehicle. It was high mileage. It needed to be driven. And I thought it was time to sell it while it was worth money. And that's what I did. But now I thought of when the bakery's slow and all, it's time to go back because all the food trucks are gone. Look around. There's nobody. Johnny and Mays are killing it still, but there's nobody. The food trucks are gone now. We were killing it with trucks a couple of years ago. So I wanted to get back into it. I wanted to do things that I hadn't done, folk fest, regattas. I never did any of that, and it's all there for the taking, you know?
I wonder how much the carbon tax is hitting on the food truck industry. I wonder if that's a factor, or is it too new?
I guess they haven't really given us anything yet. This is not driving. I don't need any registration. I got the registration now, the initial, but I don't need any commercial inspection. Food truck, I had to get inspected annually, and that would cost, because it was a commercial vehicle, it would cost thousands. Every time I showed up in the garage, it'd be this needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed, this needs to be fixed. It's 26 feet long, you know. Like, I never filled that tank, only in COVID days when it was 89 cents a litre. Back in them days, it was like $140 to fill. Yeah, at the gas price now, it'll probably be $300 to fill. It was a pig on gas, you know. It was a nightmare. But, you know, the worst part about it, I'd say the worst part about selling the truck is I spent so much time in it, so much time. But, like, I wish I could just spend less stress time and just, you know, just fucking, I wish I could have drove it across the province or something, you know?
So let me just recap on a few things here, because
we're going way off point.
I'm trying to take in everything.
Sorry.
Right from your origin story.
Yeah, I gave it all. I don't know what
Old Dublin restaurant where you had pots thrown at you when you were 16, pans and everything.
Yeah,
I think this has been my favorite podcast so far.
Well,
it's been
you don't say that yet. You know, we're not finished.
But then you came here, you worked. It's like so many entrepreneurs and people that want to get away and do their own thing. You couldn't handle it anymore, so you started your own thing. You started at the farmers market. You thought you were going to
CLB.
CLB, sorry.
And it was CLB, and I started in the winter when there's no business.
Just
so
on a whim. With
CLB craft fairs. I was in the craft fairs with people selling Sensies and all the pyramid schemies.
Yeah. So
I was that handmade guy in that corner.
So you started there with a table.
Then it was farmers market. Yes,
then it was the farmers market. You thought you were going to grow it. Then you went and invested in the trucks, spent 40 grand to get it there. And then they kicked you out, so you pivoted again, and eventually.
2.5 years. 2.5 years after that is when we opened the bakery. Yeah.
Then you got your building in the bakery, and now you're going to go back, and now you want to get back on the road. So it didn't work for you then, and you're going to loop back around to it again now.
It worked when I had control.
Right. But it's really been a bumpy road for you.
Yeah. I wish it wasn't. I wish I could have the organization to be able to just have the same, but you know, I've talked to the staff about it. They don't want to do the same thing every day. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, if they see me getting out of a jam, I think they kind of enjoy it. I'm sure, I know they get pissed off, but you know, when next year when we're doing the folk, because I did the folk fest, I went to the folk fest this year and I got to see, you know, Emmy Lou, and I got to see, you know, what's his name? Not Steve Earle. Steve Earle? What's the Copperhead Roll? You know that song? Brilliant gig. Brilliant. I'm sorry for him. I don't remember his name right now. Brilliant concert. It was an amazing. It was the first year you could openly have a beer while you watch the show. No beer tent. Folk festival. It was right here. It was brilliant. You probably can hear it from here.
I can, yeah.
Lucky. Anyway, the food lacked. There was supposed to be 8 or 9 food vendors, but there was nobody there, especially in the night time. The only one there was Ziggy's, and they had not longer Ziggy's. We had 2.5 hour lineup. You know what I mean? Wow. It was an awful shame. Now you know the folk fest. It's an awful family event, especially in the days. That's ours. That we can do that family thing. I got a beautiful rig. I got a little enclosed trailer that I'm using for all my housework and all. I got a little tiny trailer, plus I got the food truck trailer. So my day next year I'm gonna be bringing this to events, putting it right there, and it's this vintage seafoamy green color with all the lovely decals on it. It's gonna stand out. It's gonna look like some. I try to make it look like some of the Glastonbury food truck fest. Some of these gorgeous little vintage trucks. So I'm gonna be parking that with my 40th anniversary retro rig and my little enclosed trailer, and I'm gonna be setting up little shops and hitting up. And then I'm going to be saying to most customers, please pay cash only. You know what I mean? Because there's lots of money to be made, and that's what will keep the business going. Because we have a shop, there's nobody working as we speak. There's nobody working on Sunday. There's nobody working nobody after 8 o'clock any day. After 3 o'clock on a Friday and Saturday, there's nobody there. We have, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment that's sitting up there doing nothing as we speak. Right. And, you know, what works best for the business is that thing to be on. Why couldn't we have an overnight staff?
Actually, that's a really good point. the gents from Postmasters, they've partnered with a pizza business now,
Yeah.
and they're going to be using the space in tandem.
I've been approached in that over the times, and I've definitely thought about it. And I thought about the idea of giving back to what wasn't given to me. But I'm being selfish. I pay for that goddamn equipment. I had to rent the forklift to put it in the garage that
It's
everybody
all
asked me
in
was
there,
there.
yeah.
I've had to do all of that, and I pay for all of it with blood and sweat and tears, and mostly tears. And why would I risk it all to allow someone else to come in and pay me $100 to use it, and then fuck it up, and then what am I going to do the next day?
You'd have to have some sort of...
It's not happening. I'm sorry for the people behind me. If you want advice, or if you want a direction or help, call me up anytime. When it comes to using that shit, I'm sorry, it ain't happening. I earned that, and that's the one thing that I really am keeping as long as I can is the stuff, the bakery, and the stuff that's in it.
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, there may come a day that one day I'll be selling for the contents. Hopefully, it won't happen. You know what I mean? And on the topic of the truck, you know, the truck, why I'm going back to because there's lots of money to be made on it. And like I said, to touch back on that whole work ethics, the main reason that I started the whole business is to make money.
Yeah.
And if I'm not making money, what am I getting in bed for?
Right.
So when we have a slow day and people complain and this, that, it hurts me because I've sacrificed to be there, and so have everyone else. You know?
Well, what I found interesting in listening to you here, another thing is, you know, you're saying that the business is going through a bit of a hard time now. Prices are lowered a little bit. You're trying to get people back in the door, but in the very next breath, you're nothing but optimism.
What choice do I have? You know, what am I going to cry about it? I'm sorry, I'm always getting emotional thinking about it. It's a bit of a strange moment. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to go on social media and say, boo is me? Like, oh, I'm going to tell people. I don't know if you noticed yesterday before, I drew a table, a really badly drawn chalk table, and I wrote down the breads that we had that day across on the x-axis. On the y, I can't remember, the x is across.
You got it right.
Yeah. I used to be good at maths. On the y-axis, I wrote all the basic ingredients between all the breads that went in them, and I put X's and ticks on what bread has it. And then on the very bottom, just for fun, I wrote preservatives, you know. So you had the flour, water, salt, sugar. On the very bottom, I wrote preservatives. So, of course, XXXX, no bread get preservatives. But then everybody got to see what was in the breads, you know? And the raisin bread has it all. The raisin bread has, off the top of my head, it's probably like 10 ingredients, you know? Sourdough has water, flour, and salt. And people lost their mind on the sourdough. They couldn't, no sugar, no this, no yeast.
Yeah.
That's it. It was an interesting take. And we're trying to do a push on bread in particular because the last few weeks especially, we've had a lot of bread left over. I'm sorry, I don't want to give you bread for half price tomorrow. If if you're really hard up, you know, I'll hook you up and you can get us next time. But I want to give it to you when it's fresh. You know, we came in early to make sure it's this way. We've sacrificed, so we wanted to get it to you then when it's the best.
It's how you want people
know,
to experience your product.
I tried to drop in St. Pierre. You know, I've been to St. Pierre a few times, and last year I got to do a beautiful culinary tour. Legendary Coast, they don't want that thing. You know, it's the government of St. Pierre and Legendary Coast put together this thing where 10 people from the food industry, farmers, brewers, we went on a culinary exchange. Basically, we went to St. Pierre for 5-6 days, and they opened their doors. They brought us everywhere. I got to work in a French bakery for a full day. And not, you know, scratching the French. People, I was in their way, you know, these people are machines when it comes to baking. I was just there like an idiot, you know. It was an amazing experience. And this week just passed, we returned the favour. They came to see us and we threw our doors open. I served them on Remembrance Day. I missed my kid doing 4 parades because he's in cadets, because I served 14 French people baguettes and croissants, feeling anxious about it. But you know, secret is, I after working in the bakery for a day in St. Pierre, we use better ingredients. So I was like, I was confident. Yeah, well, you know, they're more barren than we are. You know, they get a lot of their products from France, and the Newfoundland government need to get their ass in gear, and we need to work with these people more. St. Pierre culture of food is light years. St. Pierre and Miquelon, I can't leave out Miquelon. There's 6,000 or some odd on St. Pierre. 600 in Miquelon, and I believe that Miquelon has more farms than Newfoundland.
Wow.
And Miquelon is 600 people.
Oh,
like it is I could be wrong on that, but I'll say it anyway. You know? But we saw these farms. We went to goat farms, and like it's like people. There was a woman that we saw on a goat farm, and she's surrounded by goats, and I think she might have been a single person, and she's talking similar like me, and she's saying like, "This is my whole life. I would love to sell this, but I have no one to take it. Nobody will take it. Nobody will take it my way." And she basically lives amongst the goats. She lives on Christmas Day, and when she's hungover or whatever the day is, that's her life, and that's how people treat their food. They go to the bakeries every day. It would be embarrassing to go to the grocery store and buy bread, but yeah, here, the bread was recalled. You see, 37 different bread products were recalled in Canada just last week. Wonder Breads, hamburger buns, 37 different massive, all the Sunblessed, all the Walmart and Dominion and Sobeys products. The biggest corporations across the country had metal shards in your bread, and they recalled them. Yeah, people aren't beating our doors down to buy the bread.
Wild.
That's cheaper and it's handmade.
So there's something about Newfoundlanders, not all, generally speaking, that the people here, for some reason, will always flock to the big box store. We love Costco. We love the... Yeah. Maybe that's what it is.
I think it's parking, People it makes us sound bad. We have lots of parking. We have one pinned post on social media. I can't stand social media, by the way. I can't stand it. People tell me I'm good at it because I'm very heartfelt, Tell her how it is. I can't stand it. I wish I could be Georgetown with no social media, you know what I mean? I'm envious of them. I hold them in very high regard. They're there 30 odd years or whatever. They're obviously doing something right.
Yeah,
I'd love
lovely.
to be them,
They're lovely.
Really nice people. Every day after Rob he's in our shop. I wish I could return the favor, but I'm not really many days off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But previously, he'll be able to tell you, I was always there too. But anyway, they have their customer base and they've got that figured out. They have less parking than we do. But people want to park in these giant, ridiculous, massive lot. Look at Costco, a lot over there. And people are spending money they don't have on stuff they don't need instead of getting a warm loaf of bread. I don't know. I know I'm romanticizing the whole idea. I get that. But, our only pin post on social media, back to that point, is a hand-drawn little instructions on how to park by our place. And it's exactly the house numbers, where to park. And, our neighbours in the area, they all embrace us. Our neighbours love us being there. And a lot of the people in the area walk to the shop too, walking the dogs and all that kind of stuff. So we are very accessible. We've got a wheelchair ramp. We inherited that with the building. It's a very accessible place. It's just, people need to realise that, once upon a time, their ancestors were driving through the snow on horse and cart to get a loaf of bread or whatever it was, to get a sack of flour, whatever, because a lot of people baked at home too. People went through massive challenges to get stuff in the past. We're not that difficult, and we have, a bit of practice, so we're not that bad. Maybe just say, I'm going to make, like the French people over there on Monday, they blown away by baguettes, and maybe they were just telling me that, but I was really flattered by that, because I'm trying to teach myself how to make baguettes. I know that sounds weird. I've been doing it for 25 years, but I don't have the ovens for this. I don't have the training for this. I'm just doing this. But my baguettes today and Monday night, I thought they were really, really good, just basic ingredients. And like the French people are saying, like they would 100% buy this stuff. They tell me that it's better than what they get. They get up in the morning, because they have beautiful languages, and they have a coffee. That's how they did it. We have a coffee, we go to a bakery. And when I worked in the bakery, we were touring the restaurants, and my last day was the bakery. I saw all the people that I've been seeing for 4 or 5 days line up to the bakery, and I was speaking to them all, and there was proof. They lined up, it was cold, it was snowy, and they lined up in silence, waiting for the bread. Silence. And when they got out French bread, they took it with their hands, and I tried to take it with the tongs to give it to them, and the young fella in the store was like, no, we use our hands, and we that's the bread, that's life. I would love to be able to transplant that. I know Newfoundlanders aren't Europeans like the way the St. Pierre people are and Miquelon people are, but you all claim to be Irish. Help a brother out. I'm Irish. You know what I mean?
I'm just sitting here and my wheels are spinning, and you're absolutely right. We're addicted to convenience here, and if it's convenient to go buy from a big corporation a loaf of bread with metal shards in it, we're gonna do it over going and supporting the local business. And generally speaking, there's a lot of people that do support the local businesses like yours.
Oh, 100%.
And there's definitely those people. Forgive me if this isn't a good idea, but I'm just curious, and I'm thinking of, and I'll throw the name out, India Express. Is that the restaurant? They've partnered. I don't know anything about this deal. With Belbin's and Marie's Mini Marts. I don't know anything about the deal. I just see the product on the shelves there. And so my question to you then is, could you take that type of business model and get your products, the Old Dublin Bakery labels on the bread bags, and put it into a more convenience, as perceived convenience locations to sell it more on a mass scale?
There's many different ideas with that one. Years ago, Belbin's, when it was Belbin's before Coleman's bought them over, they were locally owned grocery store back then, a beautiful little shop. They asked me, a friend of mine was working as a baker down there, and she needed a little bit of help. She wasn't able to make all the products they wanted. So they asked me to come down with a treat box of stuff, and I was very obliging. I brought down, I don't know, a lot of stuff. I can't remember what it was. But I went to Bulk Barn and bought a shagging box like this size and filled it full of basically everything I ever did, multiple runs of it. It was, probably $100 worth of gear. As a sample, I was keen to do it. And I met with one of the family, the owner of the grocery store, and he treated me like absolute shit.
Really?
Absolute shit. At the time, back then, I was charging probably $3 a cinnamon bun. Now they're $4. So in 10 years, they haven't really gone up that much.
Yeah.
He scoffed at everything I was doing. Was telling me that Newfoundlands won't want this, I don't want this, blah, blah, blah. Really talked down me, complained about the farmer's market, because I was at the farmer's market then. Said we were all tax dodgers, and trust me, we pay the most. But the tax dodgers, and we were scoundrels for being there, and the city gives the farmer's market everything, and he got nothing. He was just lousy. And he comes in an odd time, and when he comes in, he literally takes his money and he'll throw it at me and tell me to give him something for that price. And he'll always expect for $50, and it won't be $50. It'll be 3 crumpled up 5s that he's been clutching with his cold hands for months. He'll throw them at me and expect me to fuel the fucking car. He's like, you ain't getting it for $15. Anyway, so I remember.
So you had a bad experience.
I had a bad experience. I should have got to the point and said he said that we would stock a shop. But customers won't buy that. Customers won't buy that. He told me all the things that Belbin's customers won't buy, except for the cinnamon buns. And that was my flagship product. Still, to a lot of people, it's our flagship product. He wanted the cinnamon buns, and he wanted them fresh every day. So you imagine the ordeal I'd have to do that. See you later, kids. I'd never see them again because I was baking at home. Fresh every day, baked cinnamon buns, packaged, all expensive packaging, blah, blah, blah. And he wanted them for 25 cents per. And I was like, basically, how fucking dare you? I didn't say that. And I should have told him to stick it up his arse. But then I was like, no, it's not happening. It's not going to work. Like, his other brother was in the corner tapping the keyboard, and he just didn't even join into the conversation. I was like, no, this is gone. I was about like halfway out the door, and on the way out, he had brought up a point because their baker at the time was having a hard time making lemon meringue pies, getting the meringue to stick, and I said, I can do that, no problem. And we hadn't discussed plans on making lemon meringue pie, but he basically said he wanted a sample at the time. And then as I was walking out the door, he's like, well, yeah, still bring me a lemon meringue pie. And I was like,
no way.
If I hadn't owned his car, I would have done his tires in. You know what I mean? Like, so that didn't go well. And then having worked in other places, I've worked, like I said, in most of the places around town, I've seen them stocking the grocery store shelves. You have to do so much, not just work, but you have to do such volume. And there'll be a point when we won't be who we are anymore. We'll be just another Sunblessed or just another Golden Crust. Don't get me wrong, Golden Crust I know is a local company, but they're a factory. You know what I mean? We don't have the machinery. I don't sell hamburger buns and hot dog buns because we don't have the bun divider to roll them. So if I'm actually do a special with hot cross buns, whatever, we have to cut them by hand and weigh each fucking bun 75 grams, and then we have to roll, and then we have to proof, and then we have to, we're not set up for doing that. And I feel that that's not who we are. You know what I mean? Like, if we could make 100 loaves of bread and the grocery store take them and sell them, no problem. But the fact that I would have to stock the shelves and I'd have to take out the product that doesn't sell, and I'd have to cut so much. Like, I'm selling loaves of bread for $5. So we're selling, say, on average day, 100, 120 loaves of bread. Do you think that's covering the cost of our well-paid bakers, ingredients, electricity? It ain't covering the cost, but what it's doing is getting you in the door. You know what I mean? Like, we were having this discussion before we got here. Jenny said to me, especially because with the stuff that's going on at the moment, like, we don't have full control of what we need to really have full control of. And Jenny says to me, like, you know, are we really making a profit? You know what I mean? Like, we're scratching a living at most days, so we cannot give it away to a grocery store just, and it's not to deny the customers, but just so Sobeys can have the benefits, or just so whatever. It would be good for the business if we can make money. But if Sobeys can afford it. I worked at Sobeys for a short time. They had two private jets. You know, they were a local company with two private jets. You know what I mean? They and all power to them if that's where they are. But what I'm saying is, they can afford to buy my bread at full price. They can afford to send somebody down to pick it up. They can afford to take everything off my shelf every day. Why would I get in their pocket when if they really want to reach out to the community, really want to support, they should be really helping us, and they don't. So I just don't. I think it would take away from our product. You know, without commenting on anybody else who does that. If that's what works for your business, all power to it. But I feel, and from experience in the past, I feel it takes away from the quality of the product, and I feel it would do the same for us. You know, the staff rule the roost a little bit with me, and they don't want to make the same thing every day. So we don't do it. Maybe in January when we're pushing it.
But you know what? All of that, what you just said, is what keeps you special.
Excuse me. Yeah, maybe, but you know, maybe it keeps me poor and stupid at the same time, you know?
Yeah, but if it's a passion. It
is a passion,
If it's labor of love.
I forgot to mention about the trailer, the final thing about the trailer. So I didn't know what this thing was, like I said. I had no idea. When I was home, or I was getting to see my father last time, home and all last August, took the kids, and as bad as it sounds, the first time the kids being home. That's life. So we did a road trip, 3 weeks solid, camper vans, rented cars, stole my brother's car, flying. We did, it was
you say you stole your brother's car?
Well, he knew, but you know, he named me brother. I have a cookie called the brother cookie, don't you? You know that one, right? It's named after him. That's another story.
Okay.
So anyway, I can tell you that one if you want. It's clean. But anyway, when I was home, we did a road trip of Ireland, and everywhere we went, we saw the exact trailers that we have. All the hardware stores have coffee shops set up as food trucks in the little parking lots, and it's ours. It's the same trailer. That thing apparently is a kit that people buy and assemble it on a trailer, whatever trailer bit. And being in Newfoundland, mine is on a tiny little homemade 5x8 trailer that some skipper around the bay has made, and my fiberglass unit's bolted to the top of it, and it's now a copy of the shit they have in Ireland. And I didn't know this until I went home.
Oh wow,
so
that's really cool.
That's how things work out for me.
I'd like to hear the cookie story, but also too, we have a recurring segment on this show where we ask our guest to provide an actionable takeaway for our listeners and our viewers. So something that you've learned the 20 years you've been baking, or even longer, and then 10 years as the Old Dublin Bakery. What's something that you've learned that you think could apply to everyone's life?
I mean, you know, when you are becoming self-employed or delving into that, you need to really decide that, are you going to give up a lot of your life to do what you want to do? Like, are you prepared to, you know, not have a birthday party with the kids? Now, don't get me wrong, we'll have our birthday parties, but, you know, my daughter's birthday is on Saturday, and I guess it's okay that, you know, me and her mother aren't together anymore, so she'll have a party with her mother, and then she'll have a party with me. Like, I miss a lot with my kids, and I try not to think too much about it because it hurts, you know. But I know that on the snowy days, and I know that when I broke up myself from snow blowing and shoveling 2 buildings every shagging day in the winters, like, I know that when I really do not want to get up in the morning at 2 a.m. and then when my feet hit the floor, I'm in agony, there's not enough whiskey in the house is going to keep me, you know, medicated the night before enough to want to do it the next day. I know that I got to do it, and if I know I got to do it with a smile on my face, within reason, with drive and passion, determination, because I have to lead by example. I got 6 employees that if I go off the boil, they'll go off the boil, and the place will sink. And, I didn't always plan it to have all the employees. And a lot of me thinks, God, I made more money way back when. But I don't want to be there the way I am. I want to be able to also have a life. So I'm trying to encourage these and develop these employees to be able to run the show when I'm not there. Not quite there yet. And there's definitely been times when I have been, when we had just a couple or 3 employees. But now when we're bigger, it's harder to get away. But, if you want to be self-employed, take it seriously. That's all I can say, I guess, and, really figure out what you're good at and do the best you can, like believe in yourself. And, I don't know what else to say about it, I don't know if that's good enough, but, all I can say is, the world needs new things and new ideas. And if you have them and you think you can do them, like, let's see it, let's see it. I'll be there. I'll purchase. I'll go and I'll bring cash you too, so you don't have to pay your credit card fees,
Yeah,
that is something that I think it's a small.
That reminds me.
What's that?
Something that's in the news recently that's exciting. And I won't talk too much about Trump, but he is claiming to make consumer credit card debt interest capped at 10%, like it used to be way back in the day. So in the States, the average interest rate on their credit cards is 28%. So hardcore usury.
Wow.
He wants to reduce it to 10%.
But the banks
amazing.
will get theirs. When you get your free vacations, I'm the one who's paying for them. When you come in and tap your card, I pay 10 cents on that tap. And then the points that you're like, great, I'm saving up all these points. It's not your Visa that's paying for them. It's me or the other small business or the Sobeys, or because we pay thousands of dollars a year so that people can
That's
get.
exactly why when I go to a small business, I try to have cash in my pocket. Here you go. Because those fees add up.
It's easy to know what you have. If you spend it on cash, you either have it in your wallet or you don't. If you're spending your credit card, it's easy. And, when, in the past, when I didn't have a lot of money, I struggled with the debts. Now, my biggest struggle is just actually getting to the online banking and paying it off. Because, thankfully enough, the business is making enough that I can pay my bills, But, I would highly encourage cash. We all need it. I always do it, I always pay it. And it's not to be tax dodging. People might get that idea, but it's because I'm paying $28,000 a year to just to have the credit card machine,
Wow. Yeah, that's huge for a small business.
And back to convenience. A lot of people just use it because it's so easy. And it's on our phones now. Click my phone to do tap.
Yes. I mean, when I'm on my motorcycle, I don't take off my helmet or gloves. I pull up to the gas pump and I tap it and go on again. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But, it's not beautiful for when you're a small business. I guess it's, you have to pick and choose. It's hard to beg for it when if you don't always do it. But I do, when I'm using small business for sure, I'll do it and I'll take my points from, the big spends, the car companies or whatever, the big Costco. I'll take every bit of point I can get out of Costco. I find I'm spending about $140,000 a year at Costco on supplies. Wow. So we do get a lot of points, but I don't get better service. And now, don't get me wrong, most people who work there, I do it, are fantastic. Some of the managers though, just if I ever bring back a product, I feel that it's my fault, even though I have no reason to try rip you off $16 for 4 milk cartons. Haven't you seen it? The milk is going bad all over the news. It shouldn't be news to you,
Right.
Yeah.
No, that's another story.
Well, what do you think, Michael?
We've been chatting for
What time is it?
over an hour and a half for sure.
Sorry.
Which is
Brother cookie story.
actually, let's end on that note.
The brother cookie story. It's a good one. I used to tell it a lot.
Okay.
I don't know if I get all the same regular customers remember it. So anyway, I was doing a beautiful 2-day event, my first ever 2-day event at Easter Seals. It was a fundraiser up there, and it was a Saturday and Sunday. Never done 2 days in a row. So I was working from home. And I went there on Saturday on a beautiful day, sold out pretty much most things or whatever. Had a little bit of stock to go next day. And so I was home again that Saturday night. Now, I lived for Saturday evenings and afternoons because I worked the last few days for sure and bust my ass. And then Saturday night I chilled. But I had to bake for the Sunday for the first time ever, 2 days in a row. And so I was baking cookies again, and I made them all with chocolate chip, had them all done and ready to go out of the oven. My brother was in town. My brother's a nuisance. I mean, he's my brother, but he's picked on me my whole life, and as an adult, I'm bigger than him, and I wouldn't take any of his shit now anyway, so now I'm the one who picks on him. But, every time he comes, he's bigger strudel, as you guys say, than me. Everything he touches turns to shit. And if you're in this path, you're subject to it. So, but he means well. He's a heart of gold. I always just say, he's a heart of gold with a brain of coleslaw. That's what he's like. But anyway, so I was making chocolate chip cookies, and the plan was to make an exact batch of chocolate chip cookies. Except before they go in the oven, I was going to hand put in peanut M&Ms. You know, I was going to a kids' event market. It was at Easter Seals. I thought they were going to go down swell, and I went to Costco and bought a fucking bag of peanut M&Ms, and I had a lovely little saltbox house. It was a beautiful little kitchen to work in. Actually, I missed that house. It's another story. So I was making my chocolate chip cookies. I had them all scooped. And my brother, his exact words as he came around the corner, it looked like simple, and he came around the corner and he said, what cookies are you making there? Because he's seen all the chocolate chip. And I said, oh, these are going to be my peanut M&M cookies. And I could see him change his face, and he goes, peanut M&M? And I said, yeah, I got the bag of peanut M&M. And he goes, his exact words were, that's unfortunate because I've been eating your peanut M&Ms. He'd been there for the week or however long, and he'd just been eating the fucking a Costco-sized bag. And I got to the bag, there was literally maybe a dozen. I was like, what in the fuck? And I had a whole batch of chocolate chip done. I had a whole other batch to go in the oven. I knew this is never going, I'll never sell this many chocolate chip cookies. So I was like, what am I going to do? It was a Saturday night. It was like 6 or 7 in the evening. I didn't want to be going off to shops to try to figure out something. So I just started rummaging through the cupboards, and I found sweetened coconut. I said, well, coconut is going to be. So I started jamming on top. Started jamming coconut because the cookies were scooped. I jamming them up, big chunks of coconut all over all the cookies, and I baked them. And the first day I didn't do a drizzle like I do now, but they went over like a fucking hit. Everybody loved chocolate chip coconut cookies. So straight away, right from when I was open, I call them the brother cookie because
No way.
he
So
caused me to make them. So they were the brother cookie, and
they were a hit.
They were a hit, and people still ask for them. People buy them.
Yeah,
We're doing a little bit different now.
Cookie.
We have to identify them, so we put a chocolate drizzle across them compared to the chocolate chip. Otherwise, you couldn't tell them apart.
Right.
But the people still ask for them. We sell a lot of them still, and the kicker, because he's come like a dozen times. So he's a nuisance. He's been here one time for 5 weeks. He shows them no plans. He just gets under your feet all the time. Anyway, he means well. But he'd come at the farmer's market sometimes, help you set up or hang around, come by for lunch. This was in the olden days when I was there. And every once in a while I'd say, I'm going to get a coffee, you walk the table. And he hated serving the brother cookies because he was trying to be, particular. So it was a kicker that he hated it, It was just get payback,
Oh, right, well, that's good for you.
So that's it. That's the brother cookie story.
I got to try one now.
A lot of my, maybe not so much like it used to be, but, back in the day, especially when we had less products, we had a bit more quirky products. Some of the stuff had funny little stories to them, and I still have a lot of those products. But my whole idea, because I was a massive Roald Dahl fan, and if you know, our cake is a Matilda chocolate cake. Yeah, my whole idea was to try to create a bakery that was whimsical and kind of a bit odd at the same time, because I loved Roald Dahl growing up. So I try to draw my inner childhood and try to think of some of these weirdo kind of ideas,
I love the idea of the Matilda
Not the
cake.
Tim Burton fan. A Matilda cake is our attempt at the world's best chocolate cake. That's what it is. Not saying it is the world's best chocolate cake.
So it's named after the
Matilda.
chocolate cake in the movie that the kid had to eat.
I wouldn't say movie, I'd say book. But
book.
not that
Yeah,
I'm
I
a
know
book
that.
snob. That's about all the books I've ever read, really. But,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, we had Roald Dahl books because he's still alive when I was a kid. But yes, the poor Bruce Bogtrotter was forced, there's abuse, the kind of abuse I got, was forced by the teacher to eat the entire giant chocolate cake because it was supposed to be the best. He had eaten a piece on the sly, right? And the teacher freaked out and forced him to eat it. And, it's a famous, supposed to be the world's best chocolate cake. So, Emily has to take credit because I told her that's what I wanted and she went and did it. I told her I wanted a rich chocolate cake with chocolate cream cheese icing.
Chocolate cream cheese icing.
That's what it is. That's
So
it.
you sure the shop's closed right
Yeah,
now?
I had the key, though. I had the cake. Listen, if you ever, especially when I was working from home, when I would have products in the house late at night, it would be difficult to resist. And now that I do it every once, especially in the summer, if I'm out walking around the block with the kids and the dogs and stuff, we'll sneak in, have a little treat. That's my favourite part.
Yeah.
To have the behind the scenes stories and the family life with the bakery. I need to get that back more because I've lost a lot of it in the last couple of years. The shop has been so, all consuming. The kids have worked there. They were our only staff when we opened. They were, and we did well. We saw over 700 people on the first few days, every day, for over 700 people a day.
Wow.
I'd love to get it back there. I'd love the kids to grow up knowing that this is where they belonged with the family. And I'd love the customers to feel that. So, if there's anything by listening to us or whatever it may be, if they can take from that, like, we just want a beautiful family atmosphere. We want you to come in. We want to do our best to serve you. You ask any people that have complained to me how I've made it up to them. And, there was one time, when I was overwhelmed, I forgot to do a baby shower gig and completely forgot. And I drove to Shag and Bay Bulls on a Sunday morning with warm pastries because I promised them they would have them for the baby shower. They were originally supposed to come on the Saturday at the farmer's market, pick it up. I did better. I showed up hot, fresh on the baby shower day. Wow. You know what I mean? Like, I do everything I can for that business. I give away so much to charities and shagging teams, people looking for sponsorship for teams. We get requests every day. Every day people ask us for stuff. And while we can't give them all, we do our very best. We give thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of stuff every year. We really don't ask for anything. We only ask for people to bring as much business as they're comfortable with and as if they would like to, because that's what's going to keep us there. If you want us to be there, we need the customers. Otherwise, we will be the next VOCM store that people will be rushing in the last 2 weeks because we're closing. And I don't want to be that way. I don't want to sell the building for contents. But, like, as much as it consumed me, the business isn't me. I'm a person, and, my fantasy is to return to Ireland because I ran away from the place. Another part of being under abuse or whatever, like another part of having that kind of trauma that you deal with. I ran away from one of the best countries in the world that, while it was in the height of its second biggest economy boom, now it's in its biggest economy boom. If I could clamor a little bit of land together maybe in the next 10 years, and the worst part is there's going to be some old rundown cottage that I'll have to fix off because my life is not as easy, busy enough as it is. But if I can get that for myself, if I could go back to Ireland, do a little bakery, maybe a couple of days a week in season. Ireland's full of tourism. I could be in a small country town and open 6 months a year, and then maybe one day a week all winter for the locals and give them a loaf of bread out the side door. Enough time to be able to be playing a guitar, walking the dog, whatever, riding a motorcycle. If I could do that in my life, I'd feel it's a real success. I get it. I dabble in a lot of that now, but it's never easy. It's never just waking up and saying, what am I going to do today? I'm always behind, But that's okay. It could definitely be much worse.
I think it's nice to have that romantic vision and that calling to come home. That's a really beautiful thing to look forward to.
Yeah, I mean, I feel that Ireland is just a much better version of Newfoundland. And no offense to Newfoundland, we're just it's a different place, And I'm hopefully that global warming won't consume and ruin Ireland, and that's all I can hope for. And hopefully I can get back. I love going back, and I went 8 years without leaving this place because I just didn't have the money. I went obviously 8 years as well without going back to Ireland. I've been here 20 years tomorrow. I missed the last 20 years of my father, who was, my biggest influence. I've missed his later years when he always said, the youngest of 10, he always said to everybody that would listen that me and him, I was the most like him, and he was the closest to me, even though he was 49 years older than me. I mean, he was working when I was a kid. We didn't have a close relationship but as he got older and as he retired, we talked a bit more. But then I ran away from the place, and I didn't have an adult relationship with my father. He's not an Instagrammer. He's not a video caller. I had that if I wanted that, I had to have with my mother. And me and my mother have had a very sort of relationship for most of my life, and it's only since my father's passed that I've tried to bury the hatchet more, and she's tried to soften. And I missed 20 years of my father's life, and I can't get it back. And I missed his funeral. I missed everything, and I can't regret it. I can't do anything about it. So I can just try to not make those same mistakes. I want to have a relationship with my children for as long as I live, and live as peaceful a life as possible. Will I ever get it? I do not know.
Very humble goals.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, a nice motorcycle, maybe something Italian would be nice, you know? If I want to be a bit lavish. The bike I got now is 10 years old and Japanese. It's beauty though. I'll take it.